Hello, I am the Ronin Pawn, and welcome to a twitch.tv/Ronin Pawn live stream on twitch.tv/Ronin Pawn. Hello, Hologram Juan and the 14th Doctor. Jesus, this music though. That's the right face for it, isn't it? Like, it's dirty, it's dark, it's the kind of thing that you don't want to, you know, see in an alleyway. If you could see music. And I can see music. Can you see music? Or is it just me? Welcome to a live stream on a Wednesday, Zendnesdays. Can I sell my sanity to you, says the 14th Doctor. I don't need any. I don't think, anyway. That's the problem. The people who need it, they don't think they need it. Okay, Kevin, Mr. McCloud with your ice flow. It's lovely and all, but Jesus, that's kind of nasty, that beat, that groove. Isn't it? Interesting choice of game pawn. Very unconventional, says a guy called Pie. What am I gonna do? I promise you, here and now, I promise you that by, if not before, next Wednesday, virtual reality will return to the Ronin Pawn channel, to the Twitch live streams of the Ronin Pawn. It will be there. I just need to figure out these wires. And I still haven't done anything with the soldering equipment's all set up over there. I had Sunday after the live stream, okay, and after everything had gone on that weekend that you may or may not recall, I went out to a karaoke night at the local bar. Cheer 5. What's it gonna be today, Pawn? Xander bitching about Google, says a guy called Pie. Probably more of the latter, and I want to talk about it. It's out there. Thank you for the cheer, Pie. Sunday, I went out to a karaoke night just to try and, you know, settle things down into a more, like, he's normal-ish kind of a thing. So I went out to a karaoke night, at a local bar, and I did 2 songs, and, what was the first one? I did Possum Kingdom by the Toadies, and then I did, Lady Gaga's, Bad Romance, because, caught in a bad romance. So I did that, and the thing is, both of those songs have to be projected from the gut for me to sing them, and, by the end of the second song, I literally collapsed back into the chair. My chronic fatigue syndrome, I had spent more energy than I was allowed to, and so I basically managed to, like, cash out at the bar and get home just in time to, like, you know, lay on the floor for 45 minutes and, like, crawl around because I need to put that stuff away. So yeah, crawling across the floor. So it was my first, like, CFS attack, acute attack in a while, but so yeah, I didn't get a lot done. I did manage to post that video to YouTube. Clicked the upload button. Who else is cheering? Cheer 10. Zendnesdays, says Zorglob. Ra ra ya Roma ma. I like to trill the R. Ice Cream Pawn, if you want to drive away Pie with puzzles and have a good time, I recommend any Professor Layton game the stories. Oh, 14th Doctor. Yeah, do that, says a guy called Pie. Doesn't sound like it would drive him away. You guys are silly. We're playing American Truck Simulator today. Just to accompany my excuses for why we aren't playing something else today. It's the wires! The wires! I need the... Alright, thank you, ACS. Just skip it. There we go. Just get the heavy cargo DLC today, says Jasus. I've got it. I swear it's installed. It was donated to me. I swear you know, it updated after I've just not seen it. Do I need a bigger truck or something? What could I be doing wrong? Except for everything. Shitholian Truck Simulators, says a guy called Pie. Welcome to another Wednesday, Zendnesdays. The title of this live stream, at least before, you know, the authorities catch up with me, is, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but, the Schadenfreude for Google's headquarters. for Google's HQ, which, by the way, this is interesting. This has been happening to me a lot when I start up these live streams on Twitch. Twitch has a box that will, like, you know, send out a notification that you're live streaming. You can put in a custom message there, and what I've just been doing is copying the title of the live stream, and then I've got, you know, underneath that it says going live now, and then a link to the channel. I think it goes out on Twitch and stuff, but they've got their own, like, integrated censor that will complain if it thinks you're saying something you shouldn't, and it'll put in red down there, don't say anything you wouldn't say to Grandma. So it's got built-in censorship, and what's interesting is what it decides to censor. I think it's a little heavy-handed, because, for example, today I typed in, you know, the title of today's live stream, the Schadenfreude of Google's headquarters, and all the things that are happening there, and it wouldn't let me post that. It will not let you post it when it says don't say what you wouldn't say to Grandma. It doesn't give you the option to say, no, I'm fine. It just won't let you post it. So I figured, okay, Schadenfreude? Is that Schadenfreude? Zorglob? Schadenfreude? Schadenfreude. I'll never stop saying Schadenfreude. It just sounds better. But Schadenfreude, I figured it's got to be that, which is weird that they would censor that of all words. I took it out and clicked the send it, you know, make it live update button, and it still, like, wouldn't let me. You know what it didn't want me to use? The letters H and Q next to each other, apparently, because when I took out Google's HQ and just made it the Schadenfreude of Google, the Schadenfreude for Google, then it was fine with it. And I've had that experience over and over with Twitch's little notifier there, that it's trying to censor words that don't need censoring. You know? I'm sure that I've had to pull out the word poop or something like that. I don't know. It's German, it always sounds bad, says Brent Geary. I like Schadenfreude. Except for that's very Hasidic there. Schadenfreude. Go down, look, you're a mensch. We'll have a mitzvah over it, a little Schadenfreude with some, you know, crap walk. I don't know. Let's grab a job at the job market. F in German language. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Schadenfreude. I mean, if not for the German language, I would not be aware of a word that expresses that idea of, I mean, I feel like the way that it's defined is a little bit too on the nose and simple, because I don't think it is exactly just the premise of, you know, feeling good at someone else's, you know, dismay kind of thing. I think there's something subtler to the intent of that word, and I feel like that's the emotion that I found myself having today around the horrible and unfortunate events at Google's headquarters. Was, you know, there's a little bit of, you know, just exactly that, just not even making a sound, just kind of, there's some of that in me, and I'd like to talk about it, but first we need to get a job. We're coming out of San Diego right now, and I want to explore places I haven't already been. I've apparently been at least through El Centro, Santa Maria, been to. Any place that you take me where the dot's still gray, I will just take that mission. I mean, delivery. It doesn't do. It doesn't do. Well, then let's look at the monies. Where are the monies? This one seems to be shortest for the most muns. No, this one. San Diego to Santa Maria, and we'll get to drive the California coast. Oh, take that. What am I transporting? Tires. Good, I can't even screw them up. Just slam headfirst into whatever I want, and I won't mess them up. Fingers, Spitzengefühl, says a guy called by. Fingers, Spitzengefühl. Sure, me too. YouTube gives very low FPS on this stream, says Misan. Really? Oh. I started us up in 30 frames instead of 60. We're gonna stick with it, at least until the live stream break. You know, once you get going, when you do this, that feels kind of crap. But once you get going in Euro Truck, or American Truck Simulator, either of them, you're pretty much just a lockdown camera. We'll go with it. I'm trying to get, you know, the bitrate lowered so that people can watch. But let me know if the video on the other platform is similarly messed up. Engine on, and where am I going? Not here. All right, well, I do have to... Oh, there's a thing there. That's where I parked the last one. I thought it was still part of me, because I didn't really think about it. I just kind of started backing up. Just round the bend and out over here. Some major tearing, says me-son. Not 30 frames per second. Looks like 4 frames per second. Really? Definitely on your end, then, says a guy called Pie. A guy called Pie, are you checking on YouTube, though? Is it a YouTube error, or is it, you know... I mean, it's always a YouTube error, hence the Schadenfreude. Jason says, I don't think you've downloaded the DLC because it would have showed up the trailers in the freight menu. Okay. God, I checked in the properties of it to see. I've just never dealt with DLC for this, I suppose. I mean, when we got New Mexico in, who donated New Mexico to me? Who was it again? No, I really can't remember this time. But when we got New Mexico in, it just, like, it automatically installed. You know, it saw that there was new DLC, and then it did an update cycle. Next time I opened it, boom, we got New Mexico. I would have expected it to do the same for the heavy cargo, but I don't know. I haven't dealt with that much DLC. I'm getting it too, says a guy called Pie. It's still bad on YouTube. On YouTube, a bit effed indeed, says a guy called Pie. Are you watching on the Ronin Pawn channel or on Pawn Live? Because I'd really hate to find out that the Pawn Live VOD is going to be ass for the rest of the time. Thank you for getting me stuck at a red light, dickweed. You know, just turn left. Go. When you open the game and choose your profile, there's a button on the top left that has all the DLC listed that you should be able to tell it through there. Okay, Jesus. Maybe we'll fix that at the break, too. We might have to restart this friggin' stream over. Wouldn't want a Zendnesday about feeling, like, conflicted. Should I feel as, you know... It's not that I don't... Oh, God. How do you even start on this? There's no way to be sensitive and talk about the emotion that I had today, which is why there is a word and why there is an emotion described by the Deutschmen, the Dutchlanders, as Schadenfreude. Because, you know, I hear of a horrible thing that happened at Google's headquarters, a shooting that took place, and it's not my first thought, but eventually my thoughts do turn over to to the head, to the side, and the eye kind of widening to that. It does turn to that for me, because it's very hard to describe without feeling completely insensitive. I mean, I don't mind being completely insensitive, as you know, is probably clear to most people who are familiar with this channel. I don't mind being completely insensitive, but it's the simple notion that, well, what the hell did you expect, Google? You know, in my mind, I see and think of Google's headquarters as this very fictional place on a hill in a place that is already kind of fictional and on a hill. You know what I'm talking about? California, it's kind of got its own economy, it's kind of living in its own sort of world. Where's the thing I'm supposed to... Okay, I did get in front of the thing I'm supposed to be picking up. There's already that going on. There's, you know, it's nothing against anybody who's, like, managed to, you know, get to California and be able to live there and own property and work and stuff like that. Like, good on you. You made it. But it really is an experience that seems disconnected from the rest of the planet to live there. It seems like Mount Olympus to me, to my eyes. And if you're living on Mount Olympus, well, then how the hell do you have any idea what's going on down the mountain? On its YouTube headquarters, not Google. Oh, it's YouTube headquarters specifically. Well, still, you know. Wait, where is it happening then? Was it not in California? Is YouTube's headquarters in Oregon or something? Where's... Pawn Live seems okay at 30 frames per second. Oh, thank God, Brent Geary. Thank God. But regardless, actually, of whether it took place at YouTube's headquarters or not, Google's headquarters or not, Google just seems to be this company that does live at the top of Mount Olympus, you know? That lives up a hill, away from reality. It's customers, and I know I'm scraping the pole. I don't care, scrape the pole! Yeah! See that pole? That pole's gonna move for me. It's gonna move. See, I told you. Told you I could move a pole. I can work a pole, baby. I don't think it's unfair to say that that's happening, especially the way that, Google's YouTube, in particular, and all of Google, as a necessity of just doing business the way that they do business, is very much disconnected from the people with whom they do business. From both their customers and their clients and everything. It's all automated, it's all algorithmed, it's all happening over there, you know. It's our business, sure, but our hands are off it, kind of a thing, you know. We make decisions from on high, we don't see how they roll out on the ground. Literally, yesterday, I received notification from YouTube that they had fixed a video that I uploaded to YouTube, and it came down in 360p when it got done encoding and processing the video. It did not go up to the 1080p 60 frames per second that it was recorded at. It was at 360p, and it was stuck there. And I could have just deleted the video and re-uploaded it, and it probably would have worked, but I decided to, you know, hold them accountable and say, you guys fix it. So, I sent them an email. I sent the, you know, YouTube a message on January 28th, 2018, saying this video didn't process correctly. I would actually love to take you through the email chain with them, where it is a system designed to gate you so that you'll just stop participating in it. It's one of those where it's like they ask you all these questions up front, and then when they, you know, you answer them all, and then 2 hours later they email you, and it's an automated email, and the automated email is asking you for the same information that you just gave them again. And then you give them that information, and then they say, okay, we'll get back to you. And then the next day, somebody contacts you and asks you for all the information again. And they're just hoping that you'll just get so sick of the boilerplate responses and the waste of your time asking you for the same information over and over again that you'll drop out of the process. And that's one less, you know, technical issue that we actually have to do anything about. And I'm not making an assumption there. That is how modern business works. Move over, it's starting to rain, get your headlights and the blinkers on, there we go. Okay. Tier 5, the problem with these companies is that they have no idea that their policies affect real people in the real world, says a guy called Pi. And that, a guy called Pi, you're definitely helping me get kind of to the bottom of my Schadenfreude. My Schadenfreude, or whatever. Is that, yeah, they are so disconnected that they make these decisions that, you know, a lot of people think of YouTube as a place where you go and you watch people show you how to, you know, install the update to your router or fix the lock on your sliding glass door. You know, a lot of people think of YouTube like that. A lot of people think of YouTube as a place where you go and you see stupid cat videos and viral videos, and oh my god, it's got millions of views, but it doesn't really mean anything, it just means it's popular. Oh, did you see that? Speed trap? We just passed a speed trap, you friggin' cops. But I'm a law-abiding citizen, doing 58 and a 55, so I didn't get a ticket. You know, people on the outside think of YouTube as a place where you go and you consume entertainment, and that's the long and the short of it. And the people who actually make the entertainment know the hell of it. Like, you can search right now for, like, YouTuber stress, mental breakdown, and, you're gonna get a lot of hits and a lot of responses. A multitude of articles have been written by industry insiders talking about how much it is to do YouTube, and how you're always chasing a system that is constantly changing, and you're trying to keep yourself relevant, and they keep changing, like, what the rules are, and I mean, just the act of being in the entertainment industry and being public in the first place, regardless of what Google and YouTube decide to do on their end, is horrible, because it's very much about, like, chasing trends and talking about what's current now and modern. I mean, I'm sitting here talking about Google's HQ. I wouldn't be doing that You know, I haven't talked, there's been a lot of school shootings that I haven't talked about because I don't, you know, I'm not chasing headlines usually. But that's what you'd have to be doing right now. If you were trying to chase headlines and build audiences and maintain relevance, you better be talking about the shooting at Google's headquarters. You better be talking about, you know, whatever's... So, the entertainment industry is already horrible in that, like, if you get some level of popularity and you want to sustain it, you have to chase whatever's popular. You can't just create art. You can't just do, you know, what you want to be doing or what you got into it to do. You've got to make sure that you stay on top of the fidget spinners as they come out. And it is no coincidence that, you know, you see all those when fidget spinners start becoming really popular and all the kids at school have them, and then you see, like, you know, old hat YouTubers, people who are turning 40 and 50 and they got kids now, and then they start showing up in their videos with, hey, and check out my fidget spinner, I got this one and I got this one. It's like, you're in your 50s, dude. What are you doing? They know exactly what they're doing. Okay? To stay relevant, they gotta cover the things that are, and it's... So it's already horrible. And then, on top of that, you get YouTube doing what it does, and changing the rules of the game, and destroying people's channels and their careers that they have spent years, if not decades, building. The change in the algorithm that recently, you know, I think the most recent big change in the algorithm, no, because the most recent would have been the, you know, pro-advertiser change to the algorithm. But before that, the change was from having a preference for short videos, the algorithm had. No, not the lights, the cruise control. Algorithm had a preference for short videos that were snappy, and then it could send you on to another video. And through testing or whatever, the algorithm decided it's better to have long videos that keep people's attention the whole time. If we can keep people watching the longer time, something, more money. So the algorithm changes to prefer long-form videos. Okay? It's just Google doing what they need to do in order to make the maximum amount of money off of their system. So you can't blame them for the fact that they destroyed, like, basically every every animation-based channel on YouTube that had built, you know, over years and years and years of work that takes hundreds of hours per video, usually, had built an audience. Now the algorithm prefers long-form videos. So now, if you're an animator on YouTube who has already built something, well, you're not going to be preferred by the algorithm. You're not going to be recommended as much. YouTube's, you know, subscription services are probably going to start unsubscribing your subscribers from your channel like it tends to do. You're going to lose an audience, you're going to lose viewership, you're going to lose views, you're going to lose revenue and income, and the only way to combat that is to start doing long-form videos, which in animation is really fucking easy! It's just a few extra 1,000 hours of sitting there drawing frame by frame. Damn it, Pawn, inaccuracy of factual stories triggers my OCDs. It's YouTube's headquarters in San Bruno, not Google's headquarters, in Mountain View, California. Sorry I was triggered, says Angeles. Well, they told me that it was okay, so it's YouTube's in San Bruno. Okay, that's different. I'm sure they're really right down in the street there at YouTube headquarters. They're, you know, that place is definitely connected to what's really going on in the world. Cheer 5, what I don't get about this whole issue is what the problem is. Patreon exists, right? Then why expect YouTube to fund you? Just don't, says a guy called Pie. That's where we've gotten to, but you have to remember that Patreon, for as long as it's been around, was not a big thing until about 2 years ago. So you can say, yeah, now you can Patreon and ask your people to fund the game that crashes during the live stream while you're playing it. You can... Basically, that's where you are, is you don't expect YouTube to fund anything, and you pass it on to the viewers. Damn it. Alright, Alt F4. Hey, we can fix America, we can load in the heavy truck DLC. Maybe. Maybe. Yes, that is what YouTube had to say about that too, Pi, so you're in really bad company when you're saying that, is that you can do crowdfunding, you can do, advertisement deals. Do you know how many channels that used to sustain themselves on direct income via ad revenues just because YouTube has gotten tighter and tighter, and they haven't managed their end of the business well, so you can't, you know, what can you do being an entertainer? Who now have, like, constant advertising in their videos to promote, like, somebody else's product, or to promote something else that they're doing that's not YouTube, that they actually can make money off of. Like, I watch the Vlog Brothers. I'm subscribed to the Vlog Brothers. I think their content is fun. They do 4-minute videos, and these days, if you can get through a 4-minute video without a minute and a half of them talking about something they're selling, it's a good day for the Vlog Brothers. You know? I don't mind them talking, you know, they're publishing books. They took a long time. Cool, tell me about the book. Drop that in there. Right, now it's done. We don't have to talk about the book all the time. And then, we're gonna be at this place, in this location, this... They're just constantly pimping and promoting something. Constantly selling something. Why? Where's the income if you don't? Let's go to the DLC browser and see what we've got. Heavy cargo pack installed. New Mexico installed. It's there. It's there, baby. Love is in the air, and now you can customize your trucks with these new paint jobs to show your feelings or passion. We have also added small bonus in the form of cabin accessory. Why do I get the feeling that description doesn't match the pack? Heavy cargo pack. Love is in the air. And now you can customize... I'm thinking... Yeah, Valentine's paint jobs pack. Love is in the air, and now you can customize, and then over here it's love is in the air, and the subtle beauty of the New Mexico. Okay, so that one's actually right. It's clicked on. It's clicked on, anyway. Should I enable this one, and maybe we'll get the, Do you want to open an internet and go buy something? No, I would like what I already own to be in here. I don't know. We're carrying on. Continue the game. People have been saying YouTube is going to shit for probably 6 or 7 years now. This is a guy called Pie. It has been. It's getting worse and worse and worse, as they close it down to make sure to, like, they've gotten rid of MCNs, which, you know, was kind of a good choice generally, but it did undermine a lot. Like, now there's all of these channels that got demonetized because they didn't come up to the new threshold level, and you'd think, okay, there's a new threshold, that means you're taking out a lot of the, you know, nickel and dime kind of channels that weren't, like, if you're a medium level creator, you might think, okay, it sucks for them, but at least I'm gonna get something out of it. I haven't seen any increase in the CPMs in my dashboard, you know, now that YouTube has taken out a lot of channels that were nickel and diming, you know, weren't making, like, a lot of money or even a reasonable... It just... Wouldn't some of that funds end up over here? No. No. But really, none of this, I don't know, I'm going on and on and on about it. Hang on, we gotta be ready, because we're in the process of driving, was when the game crashed. And, oh, okay, go, before they hit me, Like, everything that I've said about it is basically just to say that Google and YouTube, they live up this little hill, and they don't really hear, what's going on, and Jesus Christ! The fucking game crashes twice in 30 seconds! What the hell? And then the DLC isn't working. This doesn't happen. We do this every fucking week. Why is my computer, it's always... Do I have, Afterburner running? Is it maybe I'm creating instability with an overclock? It's Afterburner. I'm not even running Afterburner. Why is life like this? Why is life like this? Yeah, I know! Fuck you! Let's check that DLC thing again. Okay? And see if it's... Love is in the air! Yeah, suck my balls. What the hell is going on? Like, could I build a more capable unit for this, for playing American Truck Simulator? I experience Schadenfreude for what happened with YouTube and Google an AdSense for what happened at their headquarters. And the thing is, like, you don't, that's not a, there's nothing wrong in feeling that. There's nothing wrong in feelings, okay? Feelings you don't control, thoughts you don't control, what they are is what they are. I'm simply talking about the feeling that I experienced, because I'm guessing I'm not the only person who had this feeling, regardless of whether it's sensitive or appropriate or not. Feelings are feelings, you have them, they don't make sense, they don't have to be sensitive. I have that, I experienced that feeling, because YouTube and Google at large live in such a rubber shell. They live in such an insulated environment where they don't hear back, where they've created a system where they don't hear back, where they make changes that destroy people's livelihoods, and, you know, I'm sure the most they do is, oh, there's a little bit of social media blowback, you know, see if we can't just be quiet until that blows over. Like, they live at the top of a hill. They live on Mount Olympus, and all of the people whose lives they hold in their hands are so far below that it doesn't really seem to matter to them. You know, they change the algorithm, and all these channels that do wrestling content are suddenly demonetized and can't afford, and they're not making any money anymore, and that issue was resolved very quickly over the course of the next, like, 3 to 4 months, by the time the channel has been basically decimated and the income is gone and they can't do it. And it's just like they're on their own timetable because they live in a cloud. They live in a special place with their own little campus where everything's bright and happy and clean and shiny and San Bruno, and you know, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't reach up to them, it doesn't touch them, it doesn't affect them. So I believe the source of my Schadenfreude is that, regardless of it being a horrible thing that shouldn't happen, and, you know, not a justification for it, and not a, yeah, get out there and do it, it's not any of that. I believe the emotion that I have has to do with, well, at least the real world reached up and touched them for once. You know, we were having a conversation about this just before the live stream on Discord, and I said, you know, it's karma. It's karma. You fuck over 1 million people, 10 million people, and what do you think is going to happen? You know, how do you think this plays out? What do you think should happen? You take people's incomes and their livelihoods away, you know, create systems that they've never changed, never tried to reform the system that they have for copyright trolling, even though that's what you get, is copyright trolls. People can come on YouTube and they get themselves, you know, big powerful people who have money, they get themselves accounts in the content matching system that basically give them the permission to go on and just click a button, or through an automated system, just upload a content and say, that's mine. And then if I upload a hour-and-a-half long video that features a, you know, 12-second cut from the song that they say is theirs, I can upload an entire film, a movie-length thing, hour-and-a-half. We edited it. It took us 3 years making it, and there's 12 seconds. 12 seconds of that song that someone has said is theirs. YouTube system automatically assumes that the person with the CMS account is right, and I'm wrong, takes my copyright away from me, hands it over to them, and then makes me fight to get it back. For 12 seconds of audio in there. And my experience has been, I have recently, like, gone ahead and said, oh, screw it, I want you guys to hear this song, so I'm going to play it, and I'm just going to give up the revenue on this video, because I don't make any revenue from YouTube these days. But my experience has been, well, when I was, you know, following the rules very strictly and stringently, I have only ever made the mistake once of playing a song that was actually copywritten, and I have gotten dozens, if not over 100, if not 3 digits worth of claims have been made against my videos for music that they didn't own. They absolutely didn't own them. People who had claimed in the content matching system things that exist in the public domain, things that are the property of the United States government, or rather the people of the United States of America, because they were performed by our military band. People who have claimed Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and stuff like that, things that have been out of copyrightable domain for hundreds of years. And this is the system YouTube has maintained, and there's been no way to correct it. There's just, you have to live with it. And for many years, until recently, the way that it worked was if you did upload a video and the content matching system matched something, whether legitimately or not, oh, great, it's 30 all of a sudden, and then it's back up to 55. Well, screw you. You would just lose all the revenue from that in the day that you released it. All of the revenue would just be gone, because it would be going to the other person. And recently, only in the past 2 years, has YouTube created a system by which the funds will be held. It will continue playing the advertisement, but the funds will be held until it can be determined who is the proper rights owner of the music. But for years and years and years, if somebody trolled your video, they would get the money. They would get the money, and there was nothing you could do about it. And since usually when you release a video, that's when you get the most of your views, is the day that you release a video. That means that no matter how much work you put into your copywritten material, and regardless of the fact that it truly was your copywritten material, somebody who has an account in the CMS system walks in, says it's mine, and they get all the money from the first day. Or at the very least, if they don't get the money, you sure the fuck don't get the money, because there was a dispute active. And it made it so that they couldn't monetize and it couldn't advertise on your channel anymore. So all your work disappears on the day of your release. Where are the cheers? Honestly, Silicon Valley is already made out to be such a little paradise already. It's not hard to imagine that the people who live and work in it are a little out of touch. Yes. Yes. And then a guy called Pie-Cheering5. Look, I always pretend that I'm really in touch with people who have it difficult and that I care, and shit. But the matter of fact is that these roads are really windy and I'm trying to read at the same time and the cheers keep coming in. The fact is that I live in the richest part of one of the richest countries in the world, so I can't pretend that I'm so much worse off than those in Silicon Valley or whatever, but it is unfair. And then, ooh, a train, and cheer 5, quit cheer 50, video snipers from India, Sister Mason. These companies, I have history. When I uploaded my Drake hotline video to the Ronin One Presents thing, I got a copyright strike that I had to fight, and I won. Bitches. I won over Universal Music Group, or Universal Media Group. You know, Universal, the guys who make movies, versus me, I won. But, I got a proper strike, and you know what happened while I was getting that strike? On that Drake Hotline Bling video, I believe I had, like, 9 different, entities with content matching system accounts who were all claiming that they owned Drake's Hotline Bling. 9 of them on YouTube. Now, I would think, if I'm designing a system and I want it to be at least slightly, like, fair and not manipulative, I would think that what I would do, okay, is I would make sure that if multiple entities were trying to claim the same video, that would trigger some kind of response. Like, you can't all own the same content. You know, I would force them to have to fight over it. If some other company comes in and says, I own this content, no, I own this content, well, then you guys are going to have to go through a CMS system and fight it out before you could... No, that's not how it works. Apparently, on YouTube's system, multiple entities can all claim to own some portion of the rights to something, and then I can get 9 different claims in my inbox for a piece of music, by the way, that in the work, the way that I made that, was protected by parody law, and by, you know, the protections of art. But that's how YouTube's system works. And it's been something that we've been bitching about for years, but they live in a cloud. They live in a cloud on top of San Bruno Olympus Hill, and they just don't give a shit. And they never have. And so when I see something happen like this, I have to admit, even though I may be a bit ashamed of having to admit it, that I do experience an emotion, irrational and insensitive as it may be, of, hey, at least the real world reached up and touched them. They kind of earned that. You know? If they didn't earn to be... I'm not saying that they earned... that anybody earned to be shot at, or injured, or killed, or anything like that, but to have, you know, the little people who you've been fucking over the years... show up and hold you accountable in some way, irrational, insensitive, inappropriate as it may be, I have that emotion. Cheer 5, no. No, Tier 100. Hello, Evil Downer Balkan. I am back on the bit leaderboard, I guess. All right, congratulations. Jason says, I saw a YouTube video of a guy who works in Silicon Valley at over $50, yet he's still got a job at Amazon warehouse just to gain experience of what life is like for other people. I'm guessing over 50,000 is what you're saying? And he got a job just to experience what life is like for other people. I mean... Zorglob says, Real World? Did you see that lady's videos? Completely loony, says Zorglob. I have no idea. Like I say, irrational, not familiar with the, it's an emotion that I'm talking about here. I don't know the details. I'm actually curious about the details, so, feel free to keep, giving me the details. But where it's not the real world, it is a bit of the real world, It's it's the people... The emotion of it is somebody reached up and smacked him in the face in a way that they felt it. Whether that's, knowing that that is not appropriate or sensitive or any of those things, the emotion stems from there. That, they've created no way that you can reach out to them intentionally. There's no way to get a hold of them. There's no way. There's nothing you can do. There's nobody to argue with, If you managed to, you could bring a lawsuit against him. You'd be in court for 12 years and you wouldn't have the money to bring it. There's no way to do anything. And so when you see something like this, when I see something like this, there is that, oh, that's horrible. And then right on the backside of it is the head tilt and the wide eyes. Where do you need it? I'm stuck where I am right now. Turn off the wipers. Turn them off. You're making Cheers 100... Cheers 50. $50,000 per year in California isn't that much because of the high cost of living. That's what I was thinking, too. $50 an hour, says Jesus. Ah, that makes more sense. Yeah, because 50K is, not in Cali. I don't want to hit anybody who's behind me, but I really did hang myself up on this. And there is someone right behind me. Okay, let's see if I can't pull it around this... Ah, God, it's... Yeah. Yep, no, we're good. We're good. I can get it in. I can get it in! Ah! There we go. Alright. Now put a condom on it. Oh, wait, no, the other way around. You do that first. What you could do is move to Twitch and don't look back, says Orglop. That's an option. That's an option. You really did have to, if Patreon wouldn't have come around, if someone wouldn't have come up with that... I mean, I suppose someone was going to come up with that because the market was there. Because YouTube created the market by not... caring how it was destroying everyone's ability to do what they were trying to do. It's just... It's a little bit awful. It's a little bit horrible. And there's been no way to address it, no one to complain to, and no one to say anything, and very much because that's exactly how they wanted it. They designed it that way. And you say, well, how could they have it any other way? And it's true. When you've got that many people using your systems... You can't. You can't, listen to everybody. You can't have open email centers. The amount of call centers you'd have to have, phones you could call to say, hey, YouTube, I'm having an issue, and then 90% of what you get are people who just don't understand the interface, or, they've got spyware in their browser causing a problem or something like that. So I understand that, but there's gotta be a middle ground. You have to be responsible. If you're gonna cut everybody off like that, and not have ways for your creators to really get in touch with you, then you gotta be responsible about it. And they were never responsible about it. They to this day, still maintain this content matching system and this, see, what they say is they'll tell you, well, we're just following the laws as laid out by the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. We're just following the laws. That's what they'll tell you. That's what they'd like to tell you. It's not exactly true. It's not exactly true. Their lawyers have interpreted it a very specific way. And they're trying to protect their own interests, obviously, and of course, but their claims do not hold water. They have friends in these industries. It's not so much, here's the truth of the matter, it's not so much about, being lawful abiding citizens and making sure that they follow the DMCA by the letter. What it is about is that YouTube had a big problem back in the day when it came up with these systems. And that problem was all these media houses with all this media and all these copyrights that, because of what YouTube was, these different media houses had basically a very good right to sue the hell out of them. Could have sued the pants off of YouTube. Because they were publishing, you know, they weren't publishing it, but people were publishing it on their behalf. You go to YouTube's homepage when you're not logged in and see, like, copied Family Guy videos on the homepage. Like, last night's Family Guy, somebody recorded it and then put it in their computer and uploaded it. And, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of views. It's on the front page. Tens of millions of views. And it's a complete copyright infringement on Fox. And the system just wasn't there to, like, protect that. So they had to do something to make the copyright holders happy. And the system that they contrived made them real happy because it presumed that they were always in the right and gave them the authority to basically steal everyone's content regardless. Yeah, I'm not getting in here. I'm not getting in here. YouTube could just go back to not paying their creators, says Bearsuit Lane. That would be an improvement, I think. I think that would be an improvement. Because then it wouldn't be a lie. Then it wouldn't be a lie, and it wouldn't be, you know, duping people into thinking, this is a platform for you to create content on and be able to, like, you know, build an audience and make money. Like, people wouldn't come in thinking that ad revenue was going to do anything for them, and then they wouldn't turn on the ad revenue, which would undermine YouTube's platform. Which means YouTube would also have to make ads, like, necessary, like, you wouldn't be able to turn off ads on your videos, which they could do, but there's just such a tangled little web that they've woven of manipulations and deceits, and, I mean, I was just, for some reason, I found myself looking back at an old video that I did, when the YPP came out, the YouTube Partner Program, and I was trying to get out the word that if you're stuck in a bad contract with an MCN through YouTube, you can use the YPP, this new contractual update, to get yourself out of that contract, because if you don't sign up to the YPP, then YouTube is going to detach your channel from the MCN network on the day that it goes live, because you have to sign up to the YPP or else you can't be on YouTube anymore, so it'll naturally break that contract in YouTube systems, and you can get out from these horrible contracts that these spurious MCNs have duped you into. And the video that I happened to watch was the one where I was going, YouTube, after notifying everyone for the past 3-4 months that it's going to be on this day, just moved it back a month. And there's no explanation for that except for they've got drinking buddies in the MCNs, and the MCNs want more time so they can try and dupe more people into staying in their contracts and clicking on the button. My experience and history with YouTube is that, you know, it's a big evil corporation out for itself. And of course it is, and it's like, duh. They're all out for it's a business. Everybody's out for themselves. They are doing things that are technically illegal, but there's nothing you can do about it. Like, we need a giant class action lawsuit. But that's never going to happen. Cheer 5, there needs to be a third or fourth option to spur competition of the online streaming and video view platform. Michigangster says, do you recommend this game? I highly recommend this game. I very much enjoy American Truck Simulator. It's a good time sink. It's very fun, it's very highly detailed, there's so much little subtlety in this game. I very much recommend ATS. You can get whatever truck you want and play. Look at me, I'm a half-millionaire over here. It's good for me on the live streams anyway, but yeah, I really like it. It's like 360 on G2A, so what's to lose, says Jesus. Really? €3.60. I highly recommend this. But so, it's just, you know, it was a shooting from presumably someone who'd gone over the top, gone over the edge, and that's a, you know, horrible thing on all sides for the person who went over the edge, and for the people who she was shooting at. And last I heard, she didn't kill anyone. Like, someone's in hospital, and it's critical. I mean, she shot people. Like, I'd like to know the details just to know the details. It doesn't make it any better or worse. But, you know, like, when, for example, a president gets assassinated or a political figure gets assassinated by a member of the public and not by the CIA or something like that, the way that that happens is that tends to be there was a groundswell, you know? So many people were dissatisfied to start with. There was such a culture of hating what this person was represented and what they were doing and how they were screwing everybody over and how they just didn't seem to care. And then one person who's crazy, you know, who's a little bit on the edge already, feels the groundswell at their back and then, you know, tips over into lock and loadville. And that's how things happen like that. That's how horrible things happen. You know, all these fucking school shootings we have in this country, well, it has very much to do with just the society that we have, you know? It's people who are already out on an edge, but if they didn't have a society behind them pushing them, just slowly inflating from behind and getting them closer and closer to the edge, you know? If people were open and available and aware and teachers were coming up to these kids, you know, who, you gotta assume that there were signs, right? You gotta believe that somebody wasn't just like, you know, good grades, shows up, has a good attitude, smiles a lot, man, he's so friendly to me, brought me an apple the other day, and then comes in the next day and, you know, I don't think that's how it happens. I'm guessing most of the time you can see this kid is massively depressed. You know, I can see in the work that he does hand in, when he does hand some work in, which is rare, that this is dark, this is brooding, this is like, God, it's violent, that kind of stuff. Like, there are signs there. But there's no intervention. And why is there no intervention? Because the difference between a high schooler in this country just looking like a regular high schooler who's dissatisfied and going through a lot of, you know, shit and social problems and that kind of stuff, the difference between just a normally dissatisfied high schooler and someone who might commit, you know, an atrocity in the next couple of days is like that much. High school is horrible. Public high school in this country, in my experience, and I went to like a very, you know, upscale Lake Orion, one of the most, one of the richer communities in Oakland County, which was for a long time the richest county in the United States. I went to high school in Lake Orion, Michigan, and beautiful new facilities, all that kind of stuff. It was a horrible experience for me. I hated high school every second of it. Every second of it. You know, the days when I just, you know, felt like, you know, when I found people who I could relate to and it wasn't some petty social bullshit game and just, you know, I had teachers there that, I flunked my honors English class. You know, you don't get into honors English class without being good in the subject in the first place. I flunked it. Why? Because my teacher was fucking retarded. Because she had no idea how to teach, nothing she was offering me was interesting, so I just didn't do the work. You know, I was dissatisfied, I wasn't being challenged, the petty social cliques just are allowed to just be whatever they are, you know? People treating other people like shit in the lunchroom, it's just allowed, just, you know, it's just being it's just what high school is. Because you think that that's just what high school is, because the administrators of high schools allow that to just be what high school is, that's why you have shootings, okay? Because some people get pushed over the edge. People who were closer to the edge already. Because of home circumstances. Because of, you know, things beyond an administrator's control. But if their environment at school were a place where they could go and feel safe and it's a place of release and that kind of stuff and relief from a bad home situation, they wouldn't be shooting up the schools. That's how these things happen, okay? There's a groundswell, there's a certain standard of pressure, and then there are people who are just closer to the edge than the rest of us. People who have mental problems, people who are screwed up, either by nature or nurture. And in this case, I would say, you know, that has to do with what happened at YouTube's headquarters. There is a groundswell of vitriol, of justified vitriol toward YouTube. And then there's always going to be people in society who are that much closer to walking over that edge and doing something really horrible. And when you get a whole crowd of people going, yeah, yeah, can you believe the content matching system? They just cut down my channel, and then they stole it. I got 3 strikes in a single day. They just deleted my channel. I didn't even get a chance to respond. When you get so many people shouting about how awful it is, those people on the edge who are already there, that's all they need. Just that little from the back. And then something like this happens. Let's give everyone more guns, says a guy called Pie. Hey, if everybody had a gun, then that means that, you know, when the kids showed up to school and started shooting, then everybody else would shoot them down, you know, first, then you'd only have a couple of people dead. Of course, it's a bunch of kids carrying guns, so there'd be a crossfire, and they'd probably kill a couple of innocent, you know, but just in the so friendly fire. But, you know, you gotta just straight off there. The availability of guns is definitely part of it. But I also just see that there's a huge social aspect that gets ignored by the people who could actually make a difference. To carry a gun and to use a gun are 2 very different things, says Jermacian, and that's incredibly true. And I know that from standing in my kitchen when a man broke into my house, and I'm holding a knife, and I know how to throw knives, and finding out in that moment that even with this guy standing there, like, threatening my life, I was not intellectually or emotionally prepared to actually kill someone. You know? I had a 50-50 chance, and probably better than a 50-50 chance, because I have thrown knives in the past, so if anything's still there of what I've trained into my muscles to throw it, then I've got a better than 50-50 chance of this knife hitting him. And I couldn't bring myself to throw it, even though he's standing in my living room, just broke out all my windows, climbed through one of them, destroyed my living room, standing there, you know, with a big, heavy, blunt object, wielding, threatening me, my life, and the life of the woman behind me, and I find out in that moment, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready to kill him. He would have had to, you know, get closer and do more, even at that point, for me to be able to, like, muster the strength to be willing to end his life. Which is why, when I found out the next day, after they'd arrested him, that he was released and back out on the streets, it's why I had to abandon my house, buy a shotgun, and then train myself psychologically for 2 days to be ready to shoot. To be ready to put down range and pull trigger. Don't think about it. Don't emote about it. No hesitation. You have the opportunity. Downrange, squeeze. Chunk chunk, squeeze. Chunk chunk. Is it still moving? Squeeze. Chunk chunk. My high school guidance counselor was worthless, says Greg Aubrey. He apparently thought I was suicidally depressed and never did anything about it, other than mention to my younger sister years later, says Greg Aubrey. My mother has a similar story from going to a doctor. She has Sjogren's syndrome. If you look it up, CFS and Sjogren's, there's a lot of overlap there. And I can't find a doctor who's actually going to, like, investigate the CFS side. But anyway, regardless. She has a story about going to a doctor, and with her Sjogren's syndrome, like, she has arthritis and stuff like that. She had carpal tunnel long ago. She was one of the first, you know, she was in the wave of people who proved that carpal tunnel was a thing and made insurance have to pay for it and stuff like that. So her hands, you know, writing for a long time is a problem for her. And every time she goes to this doctor that she's been to, over and over and over again, they have her sit down and fill out the same goddamn paperwork, by hand, with a pen, every time. And this time she goes in, and she's just like, I'm not going to fill it out. I'm not going to fill it out. And so, she writes, and she may have been feeling this way as well, but she writes there, suicide. She checks the box that says suicidal, and she hands it back to him. Nobody ever said anything about that. Not her doctor, not a nurse, nothing. You go to a doctor, there's a tick box there. There's a tick box there to say, I am suicidal. You tick the box, which most suicidal people wouldn't do. And nobody mentions anything? Nobody does anything about it? Oh, they're suicidal. Well, how's the foot? Have you been feeling the pain in the foot lately? If I had a child, I wouldn't want to send them to a school where every teacher was armed, says Bearsuit Lane. I wouldn't want to send them to a public school at this point. You'd have to, I suppose. I mean, public schools were fine right up until about junior high, I suppose. And then, I don't know, like a major change. I think, I don't know. I don't know, but a major change between the administration in like 6th grade suspecting me of slashing bus seats open with a knife that I didn't have a knife and I wasn't sitting in that seat and that was on the other side of the bus, but the vice principal takes me into the office and tries to browbeat me for 45 minutes and get me to confess to something. Between that and then high school just being this place where just anybody could treat anybody else however they wanted, and the social cliques and the teachers were clearly like checked out and didn't care that much. And I mean, there were teachers there. Everyone remembers that teacher, that one who was connected and who was like right there and who was being real with you. But there's a reason you remember that one, because they were the one, right? Everyone else was kind of either just cashing the paycheck or cashing the paycheck or just not involved enough, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know what you do with that. I know that the reason that, bad things like what happened at YouTube's headquarters happen, it's not just mental illness. Yeah, it's mental illness, but it's also, availability of weaponry. But to me, more than either of those two, is just karma and the social state. Where are we as a people? What do people accept as normal? And what do people let pass as abnormal, but I'm not going to do anything about it? Suicidal. So have you been taking your medication? What? Wait, what to do with him happened after he didn't toss the knife, says Michiganster. Don't know what she's talking about. Oh, the story of the guy who broke in. I was protecting the woman who he'd been beating. We got like a, standoff there where I got the knife in my hand and he's got the pole in his hand, and the woman who I've been protecting just darts from behind my back and makes a break for the front door. And she gets out, and so he drops his weapon and goes, walking after her, and I go walking after the two of them, and nobody was injured any more than had come about that evening between her and him and me and them and between all the people. So it came to an end, and then, of course, the Detroit Police Department arrested him, forgot why they arrested him, released him the next day, so that 14 hours after he breaks out the windows and threatens my life in my own living room, he's back on the street. But I'll tell you more about that some other time. When we come back from our first live stream break, shall we get into, school shootings? Is that a good idea? We'll talk about something, and we'll play some more American Truck Simulator when we come back from the first of our live stream break. 7 minutes. When we come back, what song am I going to play so that I know how to pitch this? Let's see. When we come back, we'll make a meal, okay? Something with some spice to it, something with a little kick, maybe some cumin, maybe some chile, maybe, if we're lucky, a little bit of ground cayenne. By the good lords. 7-minute break, go pee, BRB, pawn not out. am the Ronin Pawn, and... Damn it. Thank you, Josh Woodward. Hello, I am the Ronin Pawn, and welcome back to a twitch.tv/Ronin Pawn live stream on twitch.tv/Ronin Pawn. I am a bit of a troublemaker. I've been talking about some troublemaking things, which is why Josh Woodward is kicking up with his That's Josh! No, we're back. We're playing American Truck Simulator now. Thank you, though, Josh. We do appreciate everything you do for the channel. Josh Woodward being one of those folks who allows use of their music. You know, and doesn't get you caught up in YouTube's bullshit copyright management system. Welcome back to the live stream. I guess English schools are much nicer because all my teachers would ask how you were doing if you looked down or were quiet for a whole lesson, says Jesus. Yes, I guess they are then, because, you know, most high schools, I think... I don't know, all I can speak to is my experience, but I feel that my experience has been echoed by a number of people. You tend to have one teacher, maybe two, in an entire high school, who are the ones who actually seem to care, and seem to be paying attention, and seem to be trying to take care of their students and do right by them. And then, you know, everyone else is trying to clock their hours, I guess, and maybe that also comes back to the fact that so much is put upon teachers, you know? Something that I haven't talked about that happened recently was I went to the doctor for the first time for my chronic fatigue syndrome. I had an appointment, I went to a doctor, they were listed on WebMD as having experience with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I went to him, and I got in there, and first thing he walked in and he says, I see you wrote down here, you know, chronic fatigue syndrome. I don't know anything about that. Do you still want to see me? So WebMD has actually proven itself in a number of ways to be useless to me in my pursuit of trying to find actual medical assistance for my condition. But yeah, so I had this experience of going and seeing this doctor who doesn't know anything about CFS, trying to describe my symptoms to him. He asked me, you know, so tell me, you know, what you're experiencing, and this was a real bad, like, indicator. First thing for him to say, so chronic fatigue, you feel tired a lot? And it, like, the word tired is a... You do not get it, is my immediate response to that. So, basically, he didn't hear the bulk of my symptoms. He heard, like, I started saying, because I assumed with saying chronic fatigue, that the chronic part of my fatigue was implicit, so I started to talk about my acute episodes and attacks, and he says, well, I think that sounds like narcolepsy. You might have narcolepsy. We should get a sleep study for you. So basically, I don't have a doctor. They did a number of tests, and it's nice to have had those tests. Those tests were going to be done one way or another. I was going to have blood work. They did some blood work. A chest x-ray. Nice to have, because, you know, he said I didn't see anything on the chest x-ray, so that's nice. An echocardiogram, an EKG. They didn't mention anything to me about the results of the EKG, so I presume that all came in good. Blood pressure seemed a little high to me, but none of them seemed to be worried by my 130 over 80-something. But okay, if it's not a problem for you guys. But yeah, he doesn't know. He did schedule me for a sleep study, and I'm not gonna do that. It's a waste of everyone's time, not least of which being mine. So I don't have a doctor, and I think the reason I started talking about that was that it's kind of that. Doctors are under so much, like, non-doctoring pressure, so much, like, push the patients in and out. They're trying to support a business that's, you know, it's gonna fail if we don't move enough patients, we don't make enough insurance claims, I gotta fill out all this goddamn paperwork to prove to the insurance that I'm a doctor and I know what I'm talking about, and get them to agree to my treatments, and, like, they don't have time to slow down and actually, like, listen to you and treat you. You know, that's a luxury that doctors can't afford, and I think teachers are somewhat in that situation. Teachers, you know, 40 hours on the job, but then there's like 30 hours of grading and planning lessons and all this kind of stuff that goes in that nobody's getting paid for, and that they really shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to be doing a 60, 70-hour work week, especially when you're an educator, especially when you're a doctor. Like, it's assumed that that's just normal. That's what you got in it, you know. This is the industry. Of course you're going to be... No, I don't want my doctor working 60 hours a week. I want him being rested and ready and prepared and having thought of everything and having focused, as opposed to juggled, like, you know, all the, I got this guy in this room and that guy in that room. No, I want my doctor to actually be, you know, present. I want my teacher to actually be aware and trying to make a connection with all of the students and paying attention, but our industries are not designed for that. They're designed in exactly the opposite. So, who can you blame? I guess all of us. We're all responsible. I'm gonna take this shipping cars from Santa Maria to Elko, Nevada. It will take me through 2 towns that I haven't discovered yet. Truckee, which I don't know how I've not been there in American Truck Simulator, and Winnemucca. Truckee and Winnemucca. Sites like that are often wrong. The doctors just wanted to get their name out there, says Jermasian. Lawsuits, says Jermasian. Yeah, WebMD has proven itself intensely useless to me in a number of circumstances. The first doctor who I looked up on WebMD to try and help with my issue also said that she worked on CMS, so she probably didn't, based on my experience to date. Ooh, should I sleep before I get... Nah, just go pick it up and then you'll sleep when you have to. But she had a certain insurer, and it was all listed there in WebMD, and it was like, okay, with the insurance that the government is giving me here, I should be able to... I should be able to, you know, see this doctor. I call up the state insurance, who decides, you know, who I've got to report, like, who I'm going to go to, and they're going to sign me up for the insurance plan that goes along with that doctor and that kind of stuff. They sign me up, no problem. Then I call her office, because I actually did this, you know, out of order. It was my first experience with it, and I just got a letter saying you have to do this by a certain date, so I called the number and started this process. So I didn't have an appointment with her beforehand. I set her up as my doctor because it was one of the leads anyway, and I had to give them a name. And then I call her office up, and they go, we don't see people with state insurance. Which you would think that the state would know. And you would think that WebMD might mention that. The state who's supposed to be responsible for, like, recommending, like, helping people choose what doctor and what plan, and they just sign me up for a doctor and a plan that they won't... She doesn't even take I can't see her. You know, everybody's so goddamn busy that nobody can do their fucking jobs, is how it kind of looks to me. And nobody thinks that it's important to do their jobs. Like, society has created a standard by which, you know, it's... You're all supposed to be so busy that you can't do your jobs, so nobody can do their jobs, so everybody's job, you know, everybody just gets to the assumption that, good enough. Good enough is above and beyond, right? And then we wonder. And then we wonder how things come to this. You know, I don't know how related this is, but I was just thinking about this. What am I doing? I'm doing the cars. Oh, I could take either of them. Well, this one pays more for some reason. Dang it. There have been studies done, that show a good early detection system for, like, global events, for large things, or regional, you know, like earthquakes and stuff like that. There is a pretty decent early detection system to be found just in looking at how people behave. Just at looking at society. You can see when horrible things are about to happen just by how people are behaving, like what they're doing in their lives. You can see people sort of preparing for bad things and moving out of an area even when they can't possibly know that something horrible is coming. And you think about, well, I think about, you don't have to think about it. Well, you do now, because I'm talking about it and you're listening to me. So I control your mind, and you must think about it. But you think about, like, you know, earthquakes and stuff like that, and it tends to be earthquakes, volcanic activity. Like, a couple of hours before these things actually kick off, you'll see the local wildlife start to abandon the area. You can notice that. And that's very interesting, isn't it? Isn't it curious that, like, birds and deer and moose and elk and God knows what else kind of know that something's coming without knowing? You know? And maybe there's just a couple of subsets of the local wildlife population who can actually, like, feel the low tremors in the earth and know that shit's going on. But then all of the other animals in the area look around and see, hey, where the hell are the birds? Why are they all flying that way? And they go, I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting the hell out of here. Well, the getting's good. And then the wildlife, just the local wildlife, tends to sort of abandon the area right before something horrible happens. That has been noted as something that can also be observed in human beings. You can see when things are going to happen, and this may be less related than you want it to be, or than people want to acknowledge it to be, but it does remind me, when I think about that, of the post-September 11th reports from various people. Okay, where the hell's the road? God, these headlights are so tight. It's very hard to see where I'm going. The post-9/11 reports of people who, you know, told their story and said, you know, I was supposed to go into work that day, and I just had a feeling, and I just decided to call in sick. You know, the people who left the building on a smoke break and they hadn't smoked for years, you know, and they said, you know what, I feel like I need a cigarette right about now, and then moments later, planes crashed into the side of the building. There is a scientifically notable and detectable response from society and human beings at large that predates events. And you can kind of see how, population was kind of getting the hell out of there, and then this thing that we didn't have the means of detecting until, you know, a day beforehand, and we started to see movement on the seismographs, comes in. But look, over the course of the months before then, the population was just getting the F out. It's very interesting to me. You know, societies at large know more. There is an intelligence to large groups of people that is hard to explain when you look at how little intelligence there tends to be in individuals. A civilization that is big enough will end up trading with each other, eventually resulting in currency. I don't see how even alien races would evade that system, so it's not really our fault, I say, says Dendi. You mean in relation to... I don't know, maybe there's another conversation going on, but do you mean in relation to, you know, doctors not being able to doctor because of all the demands that are being put on them, and teachers not being able to teach because of all the demands that are being put on them? And it's, the influence of capitalism undermining the actual goals of society? Is that what you're saying? Because, yeah, you know, it's kind of a natural result. I'm just waiting for us to get around to the point that several other nations have already gotten to the point, like on a global scale, if we could, you know, finally get over this whole, oh, socialism's a dirty word and capitalism is, you know, going to save us all, greed is good bullshit, and realize that there's a happy medium to be found there, where, you know, market forces do, you know, are important and do help shape the world and do advance technology, but at the same time, we can regulate these industries and we can make sure that, you know, doctors get to do their doctoring and kids in school are actually being educated and also being cared for while they're being educated, not just having, you know, pages of text information, info dumped on their faces, but actually being cared for by the people in whose care they've been placed all those hours, 5 days out of the week. There's a happy medium to be found, is what I'd say, and if we could just get there, because I think we're well overdue for it. That's how I feel. This just in, Twitch streamer revolutionizes earthquake detection. Press K for high beams. Oh my god! Jesus! I had no idea! All this time I've been playing American Truck Simulator. Of course! Because K for high beam. Jesus, how did I miss it? Look at that! Okay, I probably shouldn't do that. I wonder if the cops will give me a ticket for having those on when there are people ahead of me. But, oh, Jesus, you've just revolutionized earthquake detection. And this live stream. Yes, money, 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 says Dendi. Yeah. 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 You know, and it's only gonna get worse is the thing. If we don't, like, start... If liberals don't take back the word liberal. Like, that's step one. God. you let the opposition of your financial position in government, like, seize the word liberal and make it into a dirty word. Take that shit back. It is not a bad thing to be a liberal. It's not a bad thing to be a conservative either. They're just fiscal policies. They're supposed to just be fiscal policies. Nowadays, conservative tends to be associated with, you know, anti-abortion and you know, hardcore Christian and Puritanism and stuff like that. That's not what it is. Conservatism is a fiscal policy that roots itself in, you know, trusting that the market will help. And it's not wrong. It's just a little bit stupid. It's just... yes, the free market, quote-unquote, does do good things. A free market unregulated does way more bad things than good things. And I point to Nike and its third-party contractors that hire foreign migrants in Malaysia and make them basically into slave labor, and Nike doesn't do anything about it because it's good for Nike. You know? Cheap labor force that literally cannot stop working for us. Slavery! Modern slavery! Wow, that's so cheap and efficient. How could we not be on board for that? I point to Walmart having, you know, their own products being made, again, by third-party contractors so they can dissociate themselves from it when it all goes to hell. And by goes to hell, I mean when the buildings that the 14-year-olds are sewing together their products in collapse on the heads of the 14-year-olds, and there's a news story, and they can just go, oh, we had no idea, and then it happens again 2 months later, and they go, we had no idea! And then it happens 3 months later, and we had no idea! And then the news agencies go to these, you know, foreign countries and look around at the buildings that haven't collapsed yet and go, hey, you don't have any fire extinguishers or smoke detectors or basic safety standards or clean water, and is that black mold? And are these children making your products? Oh, they are. Well, it's legal in this country, isn't it? Free markets left unregulated, unrestrained, will do far more damage than they will do good. And I can simply point to the doctors and the teachers without having to invoke Nike and Walmart. It is obvious. So, you know, conservatism is a fiscal policy. It has some fair points. Liberalism is, you know, has to do with a lot more than fiscal policy. What would be the opposite of conservatism as a fiscal policy? Socialism, I suppose. Right? Socialism also, very, you know, has a lot of good points. And all I'm saying is the best of the two lie when you mix them. Instead of putting them opposed to one another and saying one cannot exist in the same space as the other. We have proven that they both can exist. We have free education in America. That's a socialist system. We have a lot of free things in America that are socialist systems. But it's not going to get any better. The way that things are going right now, if there isn't a strong push from those in the camp of liberal or the Democratic Party, or what are you calling yourselves now? Progressive. Those on that side of the aisle, if there isn't a strong pull in the opposite direction, it's not going to get any better, because right now we're seeing the overthrow of public government systems, the FCC, doing exactly the opposite of the will of the people. Look at all that light! I'm sorry, people on the other side of the highway. You know, the overthrow of the Federal Communications Commission. Corporatism is infecting our government at a ever-increasing rate, and if there isn't a response, if there isn't a check and balance, if there isn't a pullback from that in a hurry, it's not gonna get better. It's gonna get a lot worse. Classic liberal fiscal policy is strong safety nets, organized labor, strong regulation of business, says Greg Aubrey. Okay. Conservatives today, bombs and Jesus. Right. Right. That's the association, isn't it? It's Greg saying that. That's the association, and I don't feel that that's fair. Even as true as it looks on the television. You know, okay, slow down in case there's a cop here. There we go. And then through the other side. I don't feel that that's fair. I would really like to believe You know, that much like the association with Christianity has become very much about Puritanism and, you know, God hates fags, and, what are the other signs that they have? You know, there's anti-abortion, sex in general, and Puritanism. I prefer to believe that we hear about that stuff and we make that association because it's sexy. You know, because it gets headlines. Because when they print that, when they put that on the television, it starts conversations and people get upset and people get active and they start yelling, and that makes their media move better on the newsstand. I'd like to believe that, and I would like to believe that modern Christianity isn't that commonly so puritanical and so uncaring about everyone who isn't on board with their belief system. I'd like to believe that. And similarly, I would like to believe, and I may be wrong, I just, you know, because what do you see in the media? It's hard to know. But similarly, I would like to believe that conservatism still is a fiscal policy. It is a political leaning, and not a, you know, not just more of that puritanical Christian rhetoric that I also believe isn't puritanical Christian rhetoric. I would like to believe, I mean, it is, but that the bulk of Christianity does not agree with puritanical Christian rhetoric, which is honestly heretical to what Jesus taught. Which is, I want to keep using that phrase because I've had conversations with people in the YouTube comment section and come to the conclusion, yeah, it is kind of unfair to say Christianity when you talk about these things, because the kind of Christianity that's being described by these things is heresy according to Jesus' teachings. In a large number of, so call them heretical Christians, they'll love it. They'll love it. Classic liberal, they did it to themselves by letting evangelicals hijack their party. Churchgoers are by far the biggest GOP voting bloc. I can't disagree. I can't disagree when I see, you know, people going to megachurches, which first of all shouldn't exist, but going to megachurches, and then who's standing at the podium where, you know, the preachers who have studied the teachings of the Lord, supposedly, all their lives in order to stand at that podium, and who have they got standing there on a Sunday? You know, Strom Thurmond. Somebody who's literally there to try and bump their poll numbers. And it's like, have you guys not read about Jesus here in the Christian church? Because I guarantee you, if Jesus were to be dropped off, because he wouldn't drive in, I don't think Jesus would drive. If Jesus were to be dropped off at one of your mega churches on the day that you've got, you know, the leader of the GOP standing up there trying to push his poll numbers, I'm pretty sure, based on the fact that he's already done it once before, he'd walk into your church and he'd start throwing over the pews and knocking shit over and breaking up the place and shouting, "Get thee out of my Father's house! Charlatan!" Is that not obvious to the people who are running these churches? Is that not... Have you not read the stories of Jesus? Jesus was pretty socialist when you look at him, incidentally, on another head. Jesus was pretty into the idea of the rich caring for the poor, those who have... He was pretty into the distribution of wealth concept. You could say that basically his whole life as a teacher was spent traveling the countryside, redistributing the wealth. So I don't understand where Christians come from with fiscal conservatism. You know, being fiscally conservative, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't understand how you can believe that a certain man was the Son of God and not notice that his fiscal policy was all about caring for those who cannot care for themselves. And then your fiscal policy, even though you're at church every Sunday, singing the hymnal, singing out of the hymnal, is going to be exactly the opposite. You know, pull up your bootstraps, just like Jesus did. Jesus didn't pull up his bootstraps. Jesus traveled from place to place and, you know, invited the donations of those, both poor and rich, and then redistributed those donations. He didn't take it for himself, you know? His disciples had a problem with Mary Magdalene, I believe it was Mary Magdalene, buying him some perfumed oil and giving him a foot massage on the eve of his death. They had a problem with that because they were like, that money could have been spent on the poor. So I'm pretty sure that Jesus was really fucking clear about his fiscal policy, and it had nothing to do with letting the free market just be. I don't understand how you get there. If Christians have issues with other Christian sects, that's their issue, not ours, says Bearsuit Lane. We reserve the right to point and laugh. Classic Jesus was pretty righteous. Republican Jesus is a fucking dick, says Greg Aubrey. He was. He was. Pretty subversive and in your face and, you know, cared about everyone first, everyone else first, before he concerned himself with his own needs. And then somehow you get this conservative Christian movement who's all about, like, take care of yourself, and then, you know, that'll allow you to, and then if everybody does that, just the world will be a good place. I don't see that in the teachings. Maybe we're reading different Bibles, you know. I'm reading the old King James text. The new King James text apparently hates fags and is pro-stoning people to death, and, you know, not allowing for choice. Interesting concept within Christian, you know, this heretical Christian movement that people should be restricted of their choices in their own lives, you know, around abortion issues and things like that. Because as I recall, possibly the most important choice that could have ever been made, ever, whether or not to be perfect children of God and never suffer and all that sort of stuff. As I recall, Yahweh left a big old tree in the middle of paradise that was the, if you want to suffer and know the truth, then feel free to eat from this tree. But apparently, choosing whether or not to bring a life into the world, that's something that Yahweh can't get behind. That's, God doesn't agree with that. No. That's too much choice. The choice for whether the entire history of humanity is going to be one of suffering and pain and so many evil acts being taken, that was okay. That was fine by God. But according to these heretical Christians, having the choice of whether to birth a child or not, No. I recently had a reason, and I don't know why, but it gives me an opportunity to continue talking about this. I recently had a reason to look up... Really? Go right instead of left? I'm gonna trust you, game! I shouldn't. I recently had a reason to look up the story that I believe Catholicism would use as... would cite, rather, as their... part of their rationale for why, you know, you shouldn't be using a condom, and why the act of sex should be purely, you know, for procreation and that sort of thing. I think this story, which is in Genesis very early in the Bible, like chapter 30-something, I think, in the Bible, I think it would come back to a story in which a fella spilled his seed on the ground, and the Lord looked unfavorably upon him for it, and did curse him, or whatever. The story in the book of Genesis. And I looked into it, and I can't remember the name of the fella, but it's right there in the chapter 30s, I think, 36 or something of the book of Genesis, where, yeah, a fella spilled his seed on the ground, which, by the way, is Bible talk for he came, and he didn't, it wasn't inside a uterus, so God looked, unfavorably on him. Puritanical Christianity would say, that's why you don't masturbate. I'm sure. I looked into that story. Do you know what that story is of? It is of an individual who was sleeping with his brother's wife, and who, because he didn't want his brother's wife to become impregnated with his child, and then his brother would have his child, unbeknownst to his brother, he was pulling out. That's the story in the 36th chapter or thereabouts of the book of Genesis. In the Bible, there is the story of a man who was pulling out in order to stem impregnation. And he spilled his seed on the ground to prevent this, and the Lord looked unfavorably upon him. And apparently there are those within Christianity who see this story and say, ah, I see what was wrong here. This is why God didn't like that man. It's because he didn't impregnate the woman. It's because his sperm was wasted. Not, apparently, because he was sleeping with his brother's wife on the DL. Apparently was not why God would have had a problem with that. No. It's the spermatozoa that did not reach the egg. That is what God was on about. Sleeping with your brother's wife, neither here nor there. It's the, condom that stops it from getting to the uterus. Like, when you actually start reading where these things come from, you realize that most of the people who believe this shit have never read where the stories come from. They just went into church, some asshole with a little white thing on their collar told them something, and they went, "Praise Jesus!" Because the story tells a completely different story. It really does. You can read it yourself. You may recall recently we talked about the story of Job, in which God is having a corporate meeting with all the governors of his various planetary unions in the universe. He's having a corporate meeting and Lucifer shows up. I'm pretty sure most people have just been told the moral of that story in Christian church and said, "Praise Jesus!" Because if you've read that story, you'd go, "The fuck you say?" It's just, Dendi says, it's just BS that we have to learn to know God through a 2,000-year-old book. If that really is true, then ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, we have a lame God, says Dendi. That was a core part of my problem with Christianity. I was raised, around Christianity and within Christianity. I went to a Christian school from 6th to 8th grade, and I didn't, I was happy there. I learned a lot of the Bible and learned a lot of the text, and it wasn't a bad experience for me. They weren't trying to shove these puritanical weirdnesses down my throat at the school that I went to. It was a good school. The difference between that and public school, Jesus Christ. It was great, it was a small classroom, one teacher, we all hung out together, we all had, everyone had a relationship with everyone, and no one was allowed to, pick on anybody, including me, because I picked on some people, and, there were consequences for your actions there. They held you to a certain moral code. It was a good school. And it wasn't trying to, shove a bunch of bullshit down my throat either. We did fail to learn a lot of history because we were studying the Bible instead as history, which kind of threw me off when I went back to the public schools. I didn't know anything about the timing and events of World War II or anything like that, and everybody else seemed to have at least a basic grasp on it. But it was a good school. But that was a big problem that I had with Christianity in theory, anyway, was that so much of it seemed to rely on this 2,000-year-old book. And my basic supposition was that a fair and just and all-powerful and righteous God would paint the truths of the universe into the universe, and not create a situation where information had to be given to us in text through individuals who had their own perspectives and their own take on things, and tended to be coming from a very patriarchal standpoint as well. A lot of the stories in the Bible are fairly anti-woman, implicitly, just in their language, without even being... You don't even have to look at the stories, just look at their language and look at their assumptions about this thing and that thing, and tends to be kind of demeaning to 51% of the world's population. That was one of my big problems, Dendi, was that the truths of this life should be discernible simply by living it. And if they aren't, that's God's problem. I'm running out of fuel, and I noticed it this time. We will stop for fuel before I run out of gas, hopefully, if they give me that option. That is what free speech is for, the ability to communicate about topics some may find offensive. Example, my mother is against abortion, but I couldn't care less, says Bears Lane. And then Brent Gary, God watching his children have sex. Yeah, I'm the sick one, says Brent Gary. And Dendy laughs. I just saw a comedy routine by the fella from The Office, the original Office, and also from, was it Extras? Was it Extras? Or he did that show that was about the extras on the set to that kind of stuff. Brilliant. Friggin' brilliant show, that one. I never liked the English Office. I never liked either of the Offices. I'm not into that humor that relies on how awkward this situation is, you know? And a lot of humor does rely on it, but there's a certain over-the-top where it just crosses a line and it just doesn't land with me. I feel like one of the extras in the background who's watching the scene and who's supposed to be doing this. I feel that way when I'm watching comedy that focuses on that. This person is really weird and awkward, and that's supposed to be funny, but it actually just feels weird and awkward for me. And The Office had a lot of that going on in it. So that I wasn't into that, but that show that was about the extras. Ricky Gervais, yes, 10D. Just saw his comedy routine, and one of his like one-liners that was very funny that I'd never thought of before is, if God hates gays so much, why did he put the male G-spot in the butt? I like that. That's pretty damn accurate. Damn accurate. That's just British humor, says Jesus. I think it's hysterical. No, I like British humor. I like a lot of British humor. I like when it's like irreverent and ridiculous and in situations. Gas! Gas, I said, I need gas. But there's a certain style of British humor, and it's not exclusively British humor either, but that thing, I've seen it a lot in American humor, and just shows that I just couldn't watch, and everybody else thought they were, like, great. I can't get into this. I don't like watching main characters who are just super awkward and just, like, where the joke is how uncomfortable all of this is. I just end up feeling uncomfortable, you know? Maybe I get a little bit too into the media and put myself there or something, but I can't get on. Cringe humor. I can't get down with cringe humor, though my wife who likes it, says Bear Suit Lane. Maybe that's what you call it. Stephen Wright, says Jermasian. In reference to what? Stephen Wright is great. I love Stephen Wright. It's so many good king of one-liners, man. I mean, I don't want to do his comedy. Oh, we're in Truckee! Look, we got to come through Truckee! We needed to stop at Truckee. How am I going to possibly do this turnaround? Oh, Jesus. Okay, I just gotta I gotta basically jackknife it and then block all of the road. Excuse me, coming through one side and then swing her wide. Swing her wide and then come around here. You know? I spilled spot remover on my dog. And now he's gone. He was great. He was effing great. That's just like the obvious. That's the one that everybody remembers. He had so many good one-liners. Just really... Not a big fan of the Ben Stiller, Will Ferrell school of American comedy, says Greg Aubrey. I would agree there as well. Yeah, I'm not into that. I didn't like, in fact, that's in the same category. I didn't like, Meet the Parents. I never got down with that. Fokker. I never got down with that. Like, the entire movie I didn't like, because it was all that. It was that cringing, like, the situation is so awkward, and, oh god, the circumstances, and it's, you know, that's just a part of humor. You see that in, like, all forms of humor, but there's a certain, like, and now you're over the line for me personally. And it's been something, it's a very physical response, you know, it's not like a intellectual decision, like, I think that form of humor is over the line. No, it's very, like, for me, just, no. Can't have it. Can't have it. The part of not having children was great, too, says Cindy. What? Was that... who? I missed it. There's a show here called This Country, which is basically a mockumentary about living in rural England. I showed it to my German mother, and she thought it was boring, but any English person I show it to thinks it's great, says Jesus. So it's, culturally relevant. Kevin Hart has to be the most unfunny person I've ever watched, says Jesus. Who is Kevin Hart? Kevin Hart. Is Kevin Hart a black guy? I can't think of who Kevin Hart is. I love me some George Carlin, says Bear Street Lane. Yeah, Carlin is excellent. My favorite comedian of all time, I don't think anyone's ever going to displace him, is Bill Hicks, who had a lot of Carlin to him, but even more outrageous, like, political divings and also spiritually relevant stuff that he did. Short black guy. Oh, yeah, okay, Kevin Hart. I don't think I've seen any of his, like, films and stuff. I know of him, I know that he was, you know, making the rounds and doing a lot of work, but I don't think I've actually seen any of his stuff where it was focused on him. Short and black from Philadelphia. Yeah, I know him. Like, I was actually picturing him when I was saying who's Kevin Hart, but I wasn't sure if that was the guy. Yeah, I'm not familiar with his stuff. I presume kind of goofy. I think just from, like, the types of movies that I've seen him associated with. I don't know. But when you say Kevin Hart, it makes me think of the King of Queens. He's also a Kevin, isn't he? Is that why I'm making that? Mock the Week is the best show, says Hologram 1. Makes me think of the King of Queens, and I'll tell you, I was intensely surprised by the film on Netflix that's on there right now that I highly recommend. I was really surprised by, was it like True Stories of an International Assassin? Kevin James, says Greg Aubrey. Yeah, Kevin James. True Tales of an International Assassin? Something like that? I was surprised at how damn good that movie was. You know, I mean, it's a comedy film, so it's not supposed to be epic, but it was just really good. And they really managed to sell the idea of Kevin James, you know, this heavy-set dude who has intentionally played all of these, like, dumpy middle America characters, as someone who has the skills of a international spy and hitman. They managed to tell a story where it just worked, and he sold it, too, and it made sense, and it was funny, and it was all over the place. Wright was right, Hicks was genius, says Brent Geary. Yes, Hicks was, you know, that's how you know that they were genius, if they died young. I think he was 36, 37, 38, somewhere in there when he died from cancer. Having told a lot of jokes about, like, smoking, and, you know, Dennis Leary stole some of his smoking bits directly, or at least one of his big smoking bits directly, which I don't mind. He did help keep Hicks alive and keep his, you know, that feeling of humor alive. Leary was definitely a poor man's Bill Hicks, but I'd never heard of Bill Hicks until I heard of Leary. So, just as being like a conduit through which I could find Bill Hicks, I gotta thank him for it. Love the days of stand-up on A&E, says Brent Geary. Yeah, back when arts and entertainment actually meant arts and entertainment, and not anything. Reality television, just whatever. Where are we right now? This is Reno? We're passing by Reno, everybody. Take a look. No, drive the truck instead. Don't take a look, drive the truck. We're on our way to Winnemucca, I think, is where we're taking this delivery to. It's fun. I'm glad we're talking about comedy. Yeah, Bill Hicks, if you've never heard, greatest comedian, as far as I'm concerned, ever. Did these albums that, like, included, he put on the album, you know, the sets where he was getting heckled and where he was handling the hecklers and where the audience wasn't with him and stuff like that. And it was like, listening to one of his albums is not just a, God, that's a great comedy set. It's also like, you get to experience a taste of what it is to be a comic on stage. Because he puts it all in there. He puts it all in there. What's that about anyway? MTV had the exact same downfall, says a guy called Pie. I call it the Viacoming of entertainment. Because MTV, I've seen the same thing with, I didn't watch it happen to arts and entertainment. I just looked up one day and went, wow, this isn't about arts or entertainment anymore, is it? But, I watched as MTV came out and it was amazing. It's very much, YouTube has gone through the Viacoming as well. It was amazing. Why? Because it had this public access mentality. MTV was a bunch of people who were not trying to sell products, who weren't professionals in the industry, who weren't... Ah, shit, I gotta stop the way station. Who didn't know the ins and outs of, like, you know, they weren't baptized in entertainment to the point where, you know, you have to create your content such that people will like it, but also it will be advertiser friendly, and you gotta, like, mix and match and try and balance the two. It was this public access kind of thing where people were just putting on shows that they wanted to put on because they wanted to put them on, and they were just exposing you to art. You know, they were playing the music videos that people came up with, and then in the early days, MTV didn't have enough ads. They didn't have ads for their ad space, or maybe they did it even though they had ads. They would just have, like, they would invite these artists in, and they would record them just sitting in, like, a studio somewhere, reading some poem that they'd written for 30, 45 seconds instead of an advertisement. MTV was very, like, rough around the edges. It felt like a New York public access television station, and that's what made it great. And then came the Viacoming of MTV. Comes in a big company that sees how popular this is and how it's like the voice of the youth, and everybody listens to MTV, everybody watches MTV. What MTV is doing is what all the kids are doing, what all the, oh, we can make so much money if we take this and make it marketable. And they come in, and what they tend to do is they'll take all of the, like, properties that work the best, that have the biggest, you know, audience share and ratings and stuff like that, and they'll break them into bits and pieces. If there's multiple hosts for a show, and that show is all about, like, the interplay of these two hosts playing together, well, then those two hosts are going to get split into having their own shows so that they can diversify it, ruin the best show that they had in the process, but now you've got fans of, you know, the person of each of them tuning into these two lesser shows, which is a greater market, and we can sell more shit, and we can advertise it, and we can, you know, start printing t-shirts, and they break up everything that is good about it, they homogenize it, they market it, they make it advertiser friendly, and then it dies. But a bulk of the audience doesn't realize it's died, you know, and there are people who come to it after the fact of its greatness, and the word of mouth of its greatness is still, you know, they're on the heels of that, like the late comers, and they're like, MTV! Yeah, it's so awesome! But they're kind of just hanging on to what it once was. They don't know that all the people who do know are looking at it going, oh, what happened to you? What happened to you? And that's what happened to MTV, Viacom. The purchase and then the slow destruction and marketability and diversification of the product. It became a product instead of, you know, a piece of brilliant art that everybody was tuned in because it was so much different. And when you look at YouTube, you see the same thing. You see the reason why YouTube became what it became, the reason why it had, you know, built such a market share and why it got so many people's respect. And people started watching it as a subversive, as an alternative form of entertainment media and as an alternative to television, was because it had exactly all that stuff. It was rough on the edges, it was public access, it was bootstrap, garage band mentality TV. You know, anything went. And we're just going to try everything and throw it against the wall. And then the diversification and the marketability and the how can we make more money off of this and the algorithm to make sure that we, you know, keep people bouncing from one video that's got high figures to the next video that got high figures, and then the people making the content, just in order to, like, remain relevant in this new system that doesn't take them seriously, have to start making their product more lowest common denominator, appeals to everybody, more like TV, and suddenly YouTube is just like television, and it's just the same as television. And people doing unique and original things on YouTube start taking flack and start there's social media outrage about them doing something. Oh, I can't believe they did that. That's so, oh, they're hurting the industry and hurting the impression that people have of YouTube. And no, they're just doing what, they're actually being genuine. You've confused being genuine with being subversive, with being destructive, because it doesn't make you money. There is a controversy apparently right now, very recent, where the top Twitch streamer on Twitch, the top live streamer on Twitch, goes by the name Ninja. He stole it from me, the prick. Whoa! These curves are fast, and I'm doing 80. I'm gonna do 70 through here, I think. Apparently accidentally dropped an N-bomb. Okay? Accidentally dropped an N-bomb while he was singing along or lip-syncing or improvising. I don't know. I didn't watch the clip. I don't want to see it again. It's one of those cringe things, I'm sure, and I don't like that experience. I'm not going to give myself that experience if I can avoid it. But he accidentally drops an N-bomb while he is flowing and stumbling over the words of a rap song that he's singing. Apparently he's very into the hips and the hops. So, you know, he likes hip-hop, he's singing along to it, he starts stumbling in his words, and an N-bomb actually accidentally drops out. Which, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people saying, you can't just accidentally drop an N-bomb. And yes, you can. If you are singing along to a rap song, and you are steeped in rap and hip-hop, the N-word is a filler word, okay? It's used like an article in those genres of music. It's used like the word a, or the, or and. It really is. It's just a filler word. It's good for flow. You can throw some rhymes in off of it. If you are steeped in that stuff, and you're trying to flow and you start stumbling over it, I can totally see where it's an accident. So he accidentally drops an N-bomb, and it becomes a thing, and oh my god, he said the N-word live on Twitch, and, you know, he's at the top of his game, and all this kind of stuff, and what does that mean? It means he accidentally said a word while doing a live improv show, while he was trying to sing along to a rap song. What it means is that there's a whole hell of a lot of N-bombs in rap music, and regardless of whether you're white or any other color, that gets in, you know? That gets in. That's all it means. It was an accident. It was nothing. It was one word in the span of probably millions over the course of a single live stream. How the F is that an issue, says a guy called Pie. What's wrong with quoting someone else's words? He accidentally dropped it. It wasn't in the song, is the thing. It wasn't usually in the song. He started stumbling over the part of the song, and he was trying to, like, get his flow back and get back on, and out it came, and I can totally see how that happens. I can totally see how that would happen. It was definitely not, the context of it was definitely not, what would be the word for it? Disparaging, you know? It was literally just, it fell out. And you say, well, how does that fall out? He was singing a rap song. He was flowing. Most rap songs flow with that. It's very hard for white rappers to avoid that word, I'm sure, because they love the art. They love hip-hop. They listen to that all the time, and then they go to, like, spit rhymes and flow and whatnot. I sound incredibly white right now, don't I? And there's this one word that they hear constantly in the music that they love that they're not allowed to use because of the color of their skin. And I'm not going to say that that's racist, even though it is. I'm just going to, I would say that it's a tolerable racism. That you can't use this word because you're white, because of how the word has been used by white people for so long. It's a tolerable racism. Is it racism? Yes. Is it a reasonable racism that is kind of fair? Yes, it also is. That's the world I live in, anyway. But this kid, white kid, accidentally drops an N-bomb in a situation where it is entirely reasonable and believable that it was a complete and total accident, where it's live and should be clear to anyone watching that it was an accident. And that's a big issue. And now, you know, I'm sure, like, his career is threatened and people are going to start, like, pulling their advertising tie-ins and whatnot. And the way that I actually looked at it... Oh, okay, we'll slow down. It's on the other side of the road. Gun it! Who gives a crap? The way that I looked at it was, you know, what happened there was not anything like... It wasn't a racial epitaph. Epithet? Which one is it? Epithet. It wasn't a slur. It was a moment of genuineness. You know? He didn't mean anything by it, tripped over some words, accidentally said this, and now, like, all of his advertisers are going to consider pulling out and stuff like that. You know what? I'm kind of like, good on them. Good on the advertisers. Or rather, good for Ninja. Because I'm sure if he's the top live streamer on this platform, that he is a shill. I am sure of it. I don't think you can get to the top of an industry without being a shill to some extent. You know, while I was reading the article, apparently a few weeks ago, he and some rapper, like, did a live stream together or something like that. So he's just that big, apparently, that he's pulling in, like, you know, he can pull people. And they'll come on his show because of the draw that he has on Twitch. And they want to reach his audience and stuff like that. So, you know, you can't get to that level without hawking people's goods and wares and presenting images that aren't your own and that don't really matter to you and all that sort of a thing. So I actually kind of see it as probably a good thing in the long run for Ninja, because, you know, now he has to, like, hopefully he'll realize that he did nothing wrong and that the industry that he is participating in and all the things that he did to get there were probably the wrongest thing that he ever did, and now he's suffering the pangs of being, you know, a big entertainment person who is just as dirty as all the rest of them, and that means you have to abide by their rules. They're advertiser friendly. I need you to be able to sell this box of Wheaties after the live stream rules. And the other thing that was in that article, I really want to read chat, but the other thing that was in that article was also, like, the quote of the song that he was singing from, which was apparently by Logic, something 44, and the portion of the song that he was singing where the N-bomb he accidentally dropped was apparently just outrageous and how could he, went something like, "Hey, bitch, I come at you like an Energizer Bunny, I go all night and fuck you like money," and, like, something like that. It was basically, like, disparaging, you know, is referring to women as bitches, while talking about, you know, how big his dick is and how he's gonna fuck you hard. And the worst thing that happened, apparently, in the, like, that verse was fine by the advertisers, right? Because that's just part of his image. So that's okay. But when he dropped that N-bomb in there accidentally, oh my god. The whole, you know, disparaging to the female population thing, that's fine. The whole, you know, bragging about the length of his dick thing, that's fine. Like, all of that is just good, marketable, we'll use that to sell sneakers. But the N-bomb? From a white kid? No, sir. I don't think so. That's gone too far. Give me some bagels, says Grandma. Too white for this. Let's go home. Some bagels. He even gave a very sincere, long, and unnecessary apology over Twitter. Of course he did! He had just announced, this is one of the other things I read, he had just announced recently that he was making like $500,000 or $1.5 million per month now as the top Twitch live streamer, which, whether that's true or not, you know, he's singing songs where the artist is bragging about dick length and how hard he's gonna screw you, so you never know. But Guy called Pied Cheering 5, cool, I just got a refund for my earbuds that broke after 4 months use. Guess I'll use that money to buy the exact same pair again that'll break in 5 months' time. Congratulations. Hopefully, like, the embarrassment and the what the hell am I doing with my life that will come out of that from Ninja will make him realize what he is doing with his life and what, you know, world he's been traipsing in, and is this really what you want to be doing, you know? Making a bunch of money, aren't you? And if you know, don't toe the line for everyone and everything around you, that money disappears. Is this really an art? Are you doing this for the love anymore? I don't know. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. Controversies. Controversies is all we've been talking about this whole time. Jesus. I'm turning into BuzzFeed over here. Swing a left in here. This one I'm going to actually park, maybe. Hopefully. Possibly. Because I haven't managed to park one yet, have I? Where do you need it? You need it. If I click there, you'll want it there. I'll give you a try. I'm sure that I've done this one before. How do I get there? You have to go around to the right, and then you have to back it in. Yes, I know that I've done this one before. Okay. So if I'm going to full headlights, high beams here, and I think what I'm going to do is what are you going to do, Pawn? Shoot, I was gonna pull it that way, and then, but I need to see over there first, I think. I need to, no. You're doing it right, Pawn. I think you're doing it right, anyway. Pull over here. Okay, try and get it nice and straight along the edge, but not too close, because you won't be able to make the turn. There you go. Now come to a stop, and swing her back. And I still haven't actually seen the place where they want me to park yet. Oops. I may be scraping something. It's fine. It's fine. There you go. We need to straighten you out so you'll make that corner around the... Yeah, I can see it now. I can see the corner of where I'm supposed to be going. Around here. Have I made it? I think I made the turn. I'm going to do this in one pass. One pass, Charlie, they call me. Which means if you're going to do it in one pass, I think you need to cut back hard. Ah, shoot. I can't tell. Cut back. Not yet. Not yet. Now. Cut her hard. Cut her hard, Pawn. Yeah. Skip parking the trailer. Don't talk to me about skipping parking the trailer. I've got this. Got it. Back her up. Back her up. Still cutting hard. Still cutting hard. Now just going straight back. Now just going more or less straight back. One more hard cut. One more hard cut. Come on. Yep, now cut hard in the opposite direction. Bring me over here. Oh, I've lined it up good, but oh, can I get the cab to... No, we're about to hit a thing. Shit. Alright. Nearly one pass, Charlie. Can I just pull forward a little bit and kind of straighten my wheels out? Okay, and then... back her in. Two pass Chuck is what they call me. Two pass Chuck. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at that. Look at that. It's a K-turn. It still counts as one pass, if I get it in. Crying your millions, Pawn, says Brent Gary. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's... there's a bit of a truth to that, too. Ah! Oh, what am I doing with my life? I'm such a corporate shill. All I can do is spread out my $1 million a month onto the bed and... sex. Well, yeah, I guess you could order pretty much whatever you wanted. One pass Barry is what they call me over here. Santa Maria to Elko. Delivered. Baby. How did we get onto that topic, by the way? We came through, like, the Viacoming of something. Look, I get a career point now. I haven't done any high-value cargo. I can go up in hazardous cargo. No, I can't? Why won't you let me go up on higher and hazard? Oh, have I filled it out or something? Why can't I do those? Okay, maybe I don't have the right... I don't know. I can't be bothered to even look. Fuel economy has been what I've been jacking up because I do tend to run out of fuel a lot. Fuel economy. Fuel economy for me, and another live stream break for me. What the hell are we going to talk about when we get back? Talked about the Viacoming in the industry, about Ninja on Twitch. Talked about, you know, Google, YouTube headquarters thing, about school shootings and the capitalization of and how we need more socialism and Christianity's. Jesus. We covered a couple of topics here in the past 2 hours, anyway. How come you still have the starter truck, says Jason. I like it. I like my starter truck. It's pretty. It's simple is what it is. It's the kind of truck that Jesus would drive. If Jesus were to have a truck, he wouldn't be all fancy and shiny and chrome-plated with the spinning rims and whatnot and the neon lights. Jesus would drive a nice, simple 12-cylinder. Hello, Snowman Olaf. What did I miss? Well, a lot. I've just got done describing what you missed. Jesus built my hot rod, says Greg Aubrey. Did he? We will be back in another 7 minutes with the last third of this live stream. Don't go anywhere. I shall leave you with the Grandmaster Blues, unless you have to go pee, in which case, you know, you'll catch the last half of the Grandmaster Blues. But here's MC Cullah singing about, you know, how big his dick is, and he's gonna do you all night. Oh no, that's Logic. And Ninja, apparently. Pawn not out. 7 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
I've been fine, and I've been wide. I even sailed to the 7 seas. the truth will set you free. Oh, maybe pain and sorrow, there's no tomorrow. Will take a hold of me, baby, baby, baby. I'm all alone, baby. Won't you come along and hold me? I ain't the seventh son, but I know where I'm from. Let's head on, dead on down the highway. And maybe when we come back, by then you will
Hello, I am the Ronan Pawn, and welcome back to twitch.tv/Ronan Pawn live stream on twitch.tv/Ronan Pawn. Am I bringing you down, or am I bringing you up? We've been talking about a lot of downer things, haven't we? But we've been venting, for one, which is good and healthy and nice to do, to vent, to observe the problems in their native state and get down to what the problems actually are, and I feel like we actually do that in this live stream. We do that in these live streams. We don't just sit here and go, damn school shootings and whatnot. What are we gonna do? Get the guns. You know, like, I feel like we actually vent in a way that is appropriate, where it actually concerns itself with the core issues. But what if, just what if, Revolution Void were to shut the hell up? What if we were to spend the last hour of the live stream talking solutions? Instead of just, you know, bitching, whining, complaining, moaning. I mean, that's just my normal gear. That's low for me. It's easy. I can do that all day. But what if we talked solutions? But Zen when, says Hologram 1. Everything's Zen. Everything's Zen. I don't think so. Everything's Zen. Everything's Zen. What if we talked solutions? Okay? Yeah, Hollow, this is a guy called Pi. This is the Zen, is it? I mean, hey, these are real problems that the problems of our problems are issues of humanity. That's all they really amount to. Issues of humanity. They are our problems. We are human, we made them. So yeah, they do relate. On some level, at the very least. What kind of a job am I going to have while we talk solutions? What should we be hauling for solutions? Milk is very clean and dead of all useful nutrients and whatnot, so that could be a solution. We're going to need to sleep very shortly, so I shouldn't take one of these jobs that wants me to go get there very fast. You can't see, but this one's got little red marks there, little arrows that say, you got to get it there fast. I probably wouldn't be able to. Plus cars, that's not appropriate for solutions. Empty pallets. Empty pallets. That's what we're doing. Ooh, and it takes me to a place I haven't been. Where are we going? Reading. Through Winnemucca. But we didn't... We passed by Winnemucca, but we didn't stop in it. We'll stop in Winnemucca for a nap. If we can get there before I... No, I won't need a nap, will I? I don't know. I don't know. Let's take some empty pallets. Emptiness is always a solution. Turn the high beams off. Turn the parking brake off, and back out onto the road. No, don't run directly into the propane tank. I could hit it at full speed, it still wouldn't blow. I'm sure. Maybe, I'm not sure. American Truck Simulators put a lot of good things in here. Massive explosions, I'd be on board for that. Where am I going? You're going out into the left to pick up your solutions. Solution is always emptiness. You know, part of venting, maybe that's what venting is getting a little bit empty, that you can, like, see clearly, you know? We get so full of our own opinions, our own ideas, our own, oh god, things are so horrible, and then you can't really make heads or tails of what the real problem is, because you're looking at all the that's just a curve, Pawn, not a turn. You're not really looking at the road while you're driving, and then you're running people down. Solutions? Never done that before, says Bearsuit. Solutions? Let's talk solutions. Let's talk solutions for, you know, the propensity of school shootings in the United of the States in recent. Because one of the solutions that seems to be the primary solution people want considered presently is get the guns. Get the guns. You know, no guns, no shootings. And can't argue that logic doesn't make sense. If there aren't guns, it's hard to shoot people with them if you don't have them. However, I would say where the problem of school shootings is not, you know, that there are guns, but that there are children who want to use them on other people, I would say that in the absence of the guns, what you would end up with are school bombings. Kids are smart. and you're teaching them chemistry, which I've always thought was a bad idea, you're going to have very unsatisfied... Like, the core of this problem is not that there are weapons available, although that is a problem. I'm not saying that's not a problem. I'm not saying that there isn't a insanely rampant gun culture in the United States, and that, you know, people thinking, yeah, I'll just grab a gun and go off, isn't part of the problem. But the core of this problem, especially where it concerns school shootings, is kids who have developed some kind of, you know, mental illness, mental instability, deep dissatisfaction with life, suicidal children who, when they go out, decide they want to take others with them. That's not exclusively a gun issue, and while removing the streets of the guns would be an improvement, it would not solve the core issue. It would not make these children any happier. Okay? I think you would end up having school bombings, is what I'm saying. What am I getting? You're getting emptiness spawn. We're carrying emptiness to Reading. Reading needs a bit of emptiness, is what I've heard. They will adapt, says Dramasian. Buckets of rocks have been distributed across the country, basically. It's seemingly a cultural issue from every angle, says Phoenix Within. It is. And with cultural issues, I believe also an economic issue. Oh, you're pulled in like... Oh, shit. I didn't know that that was the... Alright, no, we'll just wrap her around. This is called a W-turn. It's a little bit more complicated than a K, but it gets her done. We'll just do this. School bombings would be less of an issue. The issue with instituting a law is that people intent of breaking other laws will also break that one, says Hologram 1. That's the old bumper sticker, I believe, that says, when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. And there is a bit of truth to that as well, because how do you actually get rid of guns? Guns are a huge industry. They're going to be for sale, okay? You may not have them for sale at Walmart anymore, but they're going to be out there, they're going to be circulated, and the people who need guns for their professions are going to have guns. There's truth to that as well. Nonetheless, getting the guns off the street would necessarily result in less gun crime. I give you that. But where the issue is school shootings, not having guns is not going to stop the root of the issue. Cheer 5, hashtag bombs for America, hashtag bombs not guns. Bombs across America! Everyone join bombs and sing, I'd like to teach the children to bomb and mix those chemicals. Mustard gas for all of it. It would not address the core issue here. The core issue being that there are children out there that are suicidal and would very much like to get some vengeance on the people who they think have ruined their lives as they go out. So what is a solution in that situation? Because it seems very sticky. If getting rid of the guns isn't the solution, what the hell else could we possibly do? If it's a mental illness, a depression and suicidal thing with teenagers are, you know, moody by chemical how do you possibly do anything with that? And I think we've already touched on it a bit here. I say the solution is actually quite obvious to me. In that the problem is you have children who are suicidal who no one reaches out to. You have children who have horrible, clearly, if they're, you know, going into their schools with guns, probably don't have the best home lives, you know? At the very least, you can say, and this is, you know, making villains of victims, and I acknowledge that, and I'm sorry, but I do have to say this. At the very least, you have to say that their parents couldn't have been that on the ball with the raising of their children, couldn't have been that involved. If their parents weren't the source of the mental illness, if their parents weren't the people who, you know, raised children to be of that mind, they were at least not involved to a level that would have allowed them to, you know, intervene and say, what's going on, Jim? You know? You don't seem yourself anymore. You used to be such a happy kid. That conversation isn't being had. People are not reaching out to these kids in the moments where they really need to be reached out to. So how do you solve that? Well, we can't regulate how parents raise their children, But we do have laws that say children in this country must be educated and must go to schools. And I don't see these school shootings, I may be wrong, but I don't see these school shootings taking place in private schools. Maybe they are. We have a system of public education where our children are treated, to an extent, like cattle. There is a capitalism and an economy to our education state, and it demands that you have as many children as you can get so that you can get as much money as you can get so that you can, you know, afford to educate the children. And we pack the kids into these classrooms, 30, 40, 50 at a time, and one teacher now has a classroom full of, you know, just to have a class of 30, which is basically my education in high school, was pretty much that. You know, high 20s, sometimes 30 kids to a class. That's a lot of people. A lot of kids in a room for one person to be... you're not at college here. This isn't a lecture hall. These are young people with chemical changes going on in their body that are affecting their minds, and you're trying to teach them things, and how can you possibly focus on any one when you've got 30 of them to think about, and 30 of them to manage their education? We pack the kids into the schools. We pack them into the classrooms because that's just the economy of it. Government will give you more money if you got more kids, and you need the money just to friggin', you know, do the basics, just to hire the staff. And we don't have enough money for the staff, so you don't have enough teachers, and you can't break the kids into smaller groups, and you can't, you know, the classrooms just... there's no opportunity for a teacher who is working a 35, 40-hour work week in the school, and then going home and grading papers for 10 to 15 hours a night, and then spending another 10 to 15, not a night, but a week, and then spending another 10 to 15 hours a week making sure that they know what the lesson plan's going to be and planning things out. There is no opportunity left in that harrowing schedule for them to actually be involved with their students enough to know what's going on with them, to see that something is wrong and intervention needs happen. Tier 5, in elementary school, we had 16 kids and 2 teachers per classroom. It worked, said a guy called Pi. In the UK, 28 to 30 per class is about the norm, says Jasus. Different cultures. Different cultures have different needs. Is all I can say. We are packing kids in. We've got these teachers are at a strain, at a fevered pace. I mean, how many classes do your teachers in the UK have, you know, per day, I guess? How many classes are they teaching? Because our education system, funded at the current state that it is, I'm sure that the administrations of these schools, that the principals and vice principals and archbishops or whatever they are called, would be telling you, I am, you know, having one teacher do 6 classes a day or 7, teaching all of the hours of the day because I can't afford to have another teacher on. And if I could afford to have another teacher on, then that would, you know, split because of the way that the subjects, it would split it up in such a way that the teachers I'd be hiring couldn't afford to live because they wouldn't have enough hours. And it seems to me that the problem that could be solved here is to look at that as the root cause and say someone needs to be aware and paying attention and intervening in these children's lives. And it's not a cop that you put on campus, you know. Cops, that's security guard, is not going to be the one who says, hey, you know, Sarah, what's getting you down? It's not going to be the one to drag out that, you know, their peers are all shunning them and treating them like an asshole because of, you know, some crap that they don't even have control over. Oh, they all think I'm this way or that way, or, you know, the clique got together and decided one day that I'm the bitch, and now they won't, and none of my friends will, you know, talk to me, and because that's the kind of shit that happens in high school. You need someone who's going to be able to, like, have a close enough relationship with a kid to know that this kind of bullying or abuse, or that their lives are just unsatisfying and unfulfilling. It's not going to happen by sticking a cop in there. It's not going to happen by having a guidance counselor, because a guidance counselor doesn't have enough, like, direct interaction with the kid. It has to come down to the teachers, and the only way that the teachers are going to be able to do that job is for them not to be doing 9,000 other jobs. It's the same thing with the doctors. They can't be doctors if they're spending 4 to 6 hours a day doing paperwork for insurance. Now they don't have the time for their patients. They don't have the time to stand there and listen to me tell them what my symptoms are, and listen to me when I say I've been having these symptoms for 7 to 10 years, that, you know, I know something about what's happening to me, and I've been studying it, and I think it's chronic fatigue syndrome. Or I think it's narcolepsy. You haven't even heard all my symptoms yet. Teachers don't have time, doctors don't have time. It seems to me the easy fix here is to fund our education system to the point, and with the idea that teachers will make exactly what they're making, will be able to sustain themselves and pay. Zorbaltus just subscribed. Thank you for the subscription, Zorbaltus. Let's get some pawns in chat for the subscription. I'm going to roll right over that because I'm on a roll. To fund the teachers, thank you so much for your support. To fund the teachers so that they can still pay their bills and still just exactly what they're getting paid now, and reduce their workload. And say, damn it, it's not an hourly job. It's not an hourly job. We know you don't do most of your work on the hour. We know you do most of your work, you know, a lot of your work is done off campus. This is a salary position. This is what you make. And then hold teachers to a lesser schedule. You know, if you're teaching 4 classes, that's probably got to be the maximum. 4 classes in a week. 4 classes, 5 days a week. Maybe that's even a lot. I don't know. But just reduce their workload and express to them, you know, part of this job is, if it's not obvious to you, and it may not be obvious to them anymore because of what the industry of education has made the experience of being a teacher, those who have been teaching for a while might have forgotten that part of this job is not about making sure that your test scores come in right so that you can get the salary bonus. So that you can make sure that the school gets the income, and then the income from the school turns into your paycheck. A big part of this job is knowing what's going on with your students and being there for them and reaching in, because you are the last line of defense from a home life that is bad, that is abusive, that is horrible. You are the last line against these kids developing a mental illness that maybe does something horrible to them. Maybe they end up doing something horrible while they're in school, and maybe they get through school and go out into the world, and, you know, now they get to carry a mental illness with them pretty much the rest of their lives, because their upbringing and their education experience as a child was just so awful, and nobody was there to see it and reach in. I just cannot believe that in the wake of these shootings, that the teachers stand around after the fact and go, can you believe he did that? I never would have suspected that he or she, I don't know, have there been female shooters in these incidents? I cannot believe that that kid in my class, who seemed so engaged and his test scores were good and he was paying attention and all of his writing was just so positive. I can't believe that it was him. That conversation isn't happening. The conversation after these shootings that's happening amongst teachers is going, well, saw that one coming. And the conversation should be, Jesus Christ, I didn't do anything. And I'm sure that's part of the conversation. I'm sure that is taking place. I'm sure there is a lot of guilt on the you know, portion of the teachers. But that guilt is, you know, can only be so much, because they're under such stress. You can only rest that weight of guilt upon their shoulders to such an extent, because there is so much demanded of them that is not taking care of the students, that is taking care of the system of education, first and foremost, and not having the time to be involved and say, Jesus, these kids started wearing all black and camo, and, you know, all their writings are just, Jesus, they're dark and depressive, and I think he's suicidal. Even if they see it, you know, do they have the time? Do they feel like they can take the time? I mean, you should take the time regardless of what it means for your career, because we see what happens. But, you know, make it easy. Make them not have to swim against the current in order to get that done, is what I'm saying. That is a solution. There you go. A solution that actually makes sense, that focuses directly on the problem. kids so depressed and suicidal and so at odds with the world that they're willing to kill other people in the process of their own suicides. That's the problem. Whether there are guns available to them or not is not the solution to that problem. The solution is outreach. Is teachers not being afraid of their students and not being afraid to intervene, and also teachers having means of doing so, because I can imagine that teachers who do try and intervene and say, there's something going on here, there's something really wrong, they probably find a lot of friction in that process of trying to figure out, like, where they can go and what they can do and how they can intervene. You know, the parents, maybe the parents are assholes and, you know, just want them to stay out of their kid's life and shit like that. And I'm sure, so it's, you give the teachers the kind of freedom to actually involve and invest themselves in their students' lives and know what's going on. And then you make sure that the systems are there so that they can actually do something about it. When the problem is more than can be handled just by giving the kid, the child, the person, the human being, a place and a space to be heard and to vent. Because sometimes it requires removal from the situation at home. Those are solutions. That is a solution. And it's a solution that makes sense. And I don't think anyone would argue with it. So it's just a matter of moving the money to the place where it could be most used, where it's best put. And I would say that there's a lot of places that could do with a little less funding in the government, and this is clearly one that could do with quite a bit more. Of course, from my perspective, I'm thinking the military could use a little less funding. But others would disagree. I'm saying regardless, you know, if we're going to put ourselves into debt by the trillions and borrow from foreign countries, maybe we could take care of the next generation of human beings. Just a thought. Maybe that's a place to to invest in, to our own financial detriment. Maybe that's worth it. But what do you think? He says as he pulls off in the hopes of finding a place to take a nap. Oh, Jesus God, all of the brakes! I'm good. I don't see any place to sleep. Oh, shit. I know I'm getting tired. I'm gonna... What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm gonna go left. I should look left before I go left. You're gonna stop for me. I'm a big truck. Okay, I'm gonna go left. I'm gonna go into Reno and try and get a nap. Some people treat kids like a new puppy. They are great when they are first new, but as they grow, they are no longer fun to have. That's true. That's true. And it's very, you know, it's not easy. It ain't easy, trying to, you know, deal with adolescence. Ask any adolescent. It is not easy to deal with adolescence. With being one, or being in the company of one, it takes a subtle hand. And it takes compassion and understanding, and remembering what it was when you were adolescent, and what your experiences were. But it has to be done. A guy called Pie cheered 5. Don't know if anyone else is having this issue, but I've been having some issues with cheers not being sent recently. Not a lot, but a couple times, certainly. Anybody else having that experience? Damn it. I'm looking for a place to sleep. This is kind of a... I know, I'm still looking. This was kind of an offshoot. I was going to pull up here, turn left, and head into downtown Reno if I don't see a place to sleep, because I clearly need a nap. Oh, and there's a place to nap. Right? Up and to the left? It's either that or handicapped parking. I can see it on my navigation. It's blue. I don't think they mark handicapped parking in this game. There are education goals that still have to be met, even for homeschoolers, Sister Macy. My girlfriend does homeschooling for kids she takes care of. Never met anyone here who's been homeschooled. Oh, you were talking about homeschooling, I see. Isn't homeschooling quite common in America? It's definitely something that takes place. But yeah, so there's a solution to one of our problems. And I think it's the solution. Would anyone disagree with it? That the problem here is, you know, in the minds of the human beings and not in the availability of arms or mental illness, you know, which just tends to be like a phrase that people throw out there as, along with our thoughts and prayers are with you, it's a mental illness problem, just dismissive, just, let's not deal with that. I think we've identified the actual cause, which is, you know, depressed, suicidal kids willing to kill. And I think we've just identified the solution for treatment. I hear thumping, Pawn. Might be your cat. It's my cat with a hammer. My dad's doing some housework right now. And I don't know what portion he's doing. But, ooh, here's an upbeat, since we've come to the solution and no one can possibly disagree with what I've said, and I need to be elected so that I can make all of this happen. In fact, election, screw it, I need to be a dictator. Just what we need is a coup d'etat. So if you're in the military and you're listening to this live stream, I need you to, you know, start getting your friends involved in watching these live streams, and then I'll convince them that I am the man for the job, and then we will overthrow the government together, and I will right all of the wrongs. There we go. Here's an interesting diversion. Recently, very recently, like 2 days ago, I think, my dad was getting gas at a local gas station, and he overheard some people don't do that while I'm trying to find the place where I can sleep. Okay, I'm sorry for my headlamps in your face, but I'm trying to find the entrance to this. He overheard a conversation between a fellow who apparently is kind of a property investor and someone he was talking to about a property he'd recently invested in. Yeah, sorry I'm blinding you, but I need to be able to see. And he just went up to the fellow and said, so you're a property investor? Because right now I'm renovating a property, my son's property, and, you know, 2 or 3 months, it'll probably be done. 20 grand. And the guy was very, like, really? about it. And since then, this fella, who my dad just approached, you know, at the side of the gas pump, or whatever, or maybe on the checkout, I'm not sure if I got the story straight, but, this fella has actually called us back. Called my dad back, rather. And what's the address again? Because he wanted to do a drive-by of the house and see what we were talking about, so he's actually interested. And the thing is, if somebody came to me... Ooh, I can nap. If somebody came to me and said, I'll give you 20 grand for the place, I'm getting the hell out. I'm getting the hell out, okay? I got like $5,000 left to pay off on the loan that I wrote myself a year and a half ago when I bought the place. If somebody said, here's 20, and I pay off the 5, and I can keep... You know, after closing costs and everything, I keep like $12,000 or $13,000 after. I mean, I don't pay the closing costs as the seller necessarily, but it gets tricky. You don't make as much money as you think you're going to make. So I'm just going to assume if I walked away with like 12, 13, maybe he talks us down from 20 to something like that. Yeah, I'm getting the hell out of here. You can damn well believe I'm getting the hell out of here. I'd take it. I'd take it, and the thing is, if I were to have $20,000 offer and it turned into 12, 13 in my pocket, I can do exactly what I did to buy this place again. Write myself another check from my credit card at 3.99% APR for 18 months for another $10,000 to $12,000 because my credit limit has increased with that card since then. Oh, thank you. Thanks. And now I'm stuck here for another... No, if I pull in front of... No, you... Just... bastards. I could write myself another little, you know, mini loan, and I would have like over $20,000 to play with, possibly around $25,000 that I could use to finance to purchase another home. Because I don't know that I'd be interested in financing, especially on a credit thing. I'd have to just buy it outright like I did here. Get more than $20,000. It's the Ronin Pawns. Yeah, I could sell it on the fact that also this is going to be a culturally relevant historical landmark because the Ronin Pawn used to live stream from here. So here's what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to pull right up to you, and then when you pull forward, I'm going to cut this cop off. That's my plan. He's pulling forward. Cop. Fuck. Alright. Alright. Alright, I'll cut... This guy will leave me a space. No. Damn it. Damn it. Stuck in rush hour in a fucking video game. Come on! I could just back it up and take it down that route right there. Ooh, the truck! No, wait, that's not a hole. That's just you can't see the end of his thing. I thought the bus had given me a spot. I agree, actually taking care of kids is the solution, but it's not 100% tight, even with the guns removed. But I would say 99.99% of them, says Dendy. Yeah, that's the thing. You're never going to have a true solution. Oh, come on. Come on. Come on, now. With your just cutting me off when I'm trying to cut you off. What's that? No! Fuck! Jeez, how close am I to there? Alright, now, get out. Get, this guy stopped for me. Thank you! Isuzu man, I love you. You can have my babies. Ah, I got out. Yeah, you're never gonna solve the solution. You're never gonna solve everything 100%. But I think that's the failing of our system today. Is you don't have children. You know, they don't have anybody to go to. Over here, you can't even buy a bathroom for $12,000. It's the guy called by. Well, it's not that easy to get a house. Even over here for that amount of money anymore either. The market has come back. I bought probably this place at the end of the buyer's market, on the heels of the big, you know, market collapse, housing market collapse. So it's going to be hard for me to find another foreclosed property for even $25,000, but I can do it. It would just have to be in another probably skeezy area. And the thing is, if I bought it for $25,000, I wouldn't have any money to fix it up, so it'd have to be livable, and that's not really what I'd probably be looking for a place that I could buy for $18,000 and that's in such a condition that I could pump $5,000 into it. It's going to be tight if it worked out like that, but it's interesting and nice to know that I've got those options, and very curious to see that there is, you know, I might be able to find, regardless of this guy or not, when it comes time to sell my house, I might be able to find property investors who are looking at a place for the purpose of, you know, renting it out to make a property, who are willing to pay more than someone who's, you know, thinking to buy it to live in it. Very possible that. Tier 50, buy a whole block, start the Ronin Pawn campus. And insulate myself like YouTube and Google? Yeah. Alright, good idea. Good idea, Dramatian. We're selling a house. Sell it like you don't want to get rid of it, says Bear Suit. Oh, damn it. There was a cop present when I hit him. I was reading chat, officer. It'll happen. I guess I'd back up a little bit so I'm not touching him anymore. I want to be touching him. Stop. Am I dragging you? Are you stuck on my bumper now? Has this game gotten, like, too realistic? Go. There you go. Jackass. He's at fault for having been parked in front of me at a light. What a douche nozzle. Rent it out to other streamers to spare soon. No chatting and driving, says Hologram One. I'll do what I want to. Oh, God, I'm starting to get lightheaded from the length of this stream. Also the length of this stream, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so there might be the possibility for me to sell my house. Which is interesting. God, damn it. There was something else that was big that I wanted to talk about. Oh, yes! Okay, final topic of conversation, hopefully, for this live stream, because, God, I'm starting to get, you know, I get the wrist numbness and everything. I've just been breathing and pushing air past my vocal cords for too long. It gets old. But it just occurred to me, we were talking about recently on the Discord, well, I was basically just mouthing off and just going on and on about the automatic car, about the idea of the self-driving vehicle. And this is a complete divergence. This is just like, has nothing to do with anything else that we've said. Everything else at least kind of streamed into the other one. This is just a hard break and a slam to another direction, but I was thinking about it, we were talking about it, and there's just never going to be a safe self-driving car. I think this is why it came up in my head, actually, was because we were saying that, you know, 99.99% that's the solution. And that's all you can ever do, is get a 99.99% solution. Nothing is ever truly safe. You know, you don't get a 100% safety rating on anything in this world. And I acknowledge that the self-driving car is going to be far safer than the human driving car. The car that's driven by people. Definitely you're going to see reductions of property damage, of accidents that involve, you know, both deaths and just injuries and stuff like that. The self-driving car is going to be a boon for those percentage ratings. That is a given for me. That said, there is never going to be a time, I don't believe there will ever be a time in human history, before we destroy ourselves, when there is such a thing as secure computing, when there is such a thing as secure networking, when there is such a thing as a secure wireless connection. I don't believe that's possible. I believe that the most secure systems of today that are secure will not be secure tomorrow. That as technology develops and advances, somebody comes up with something, and the old code that, you can't break this code, there's just too many digits in it, and then somebody comes up with the quantum computer, and something that would have taken a conventional computer thousands of years to break the code on, can now be broken in a few hours or a few days. I do not believe that there will ever be a permanently secure network of any kind. And so long as human beings are involved in the secureness of that network, human beings will be, you know, the greatest fault in it. And human beings are always going to be involved in the secureness of that network until we start letting AI design our lives, I suppose. In which case, well, now we've got to worry about how AI thinks is the best way to protect us. You know, Terminator, iRobot kind of realities in which the computer draws the same conclusion that I've drawn on a number of low points in my life, that humanity really needs to be protected from itself. We need to restrict people from being able to make their own decisions. This isn't working out. The internet does not want you to discuss this, Sister Macy, and then live stream ended. A guy called Pi cheering 5. Honestly, I'm not too thrilled about the future of technology. Eventually, we're going to be able to do so many things with technology that we might as well become vegetables, says a guy called Pi. Listen, my body's turning into a vegetable early, so I'm pro-vegetable state. No, I get what you're saying. I'm with you on that ad. But because there's never going to be such a thing as a secure network, and certainly not a secure wireless network, and because there's always going to be the possibility of just, like, before you get into people social engineering their way into password lists and getting access to, you know, things, there's also, like, I have very first-hand experience with the fact that I've developed websites for people, and they were using like web hosts that, due to errors and issues with the website, I had to, you know, get in contact with the web host. And through the errors and issues that I was having, I discovered that the web host who hosted the websites commercially for businesses of, you know, hundreds, and hopefully if they're doing good business, thousands of customers, their password lists were not secured with salt and hash. Their password lists were simply keyed. They were reversible encryption is what their passwords were. And I'm talking about, like, present. I'm not talking about, like, in the past, 4 years ago, 6 years ago. I'm talking about currently. There are web servers out there that are selling products to people, and their password lists are reversible encryption, which means if you have the key, the one key, in the case of this web host, the one single key that reverse decrypts the password, then you can look at it. How do I know that they have those systems in operation? Well, because if you lose their password, they'll email you your password, which is a massive breach of security in and of itself, that you're emailing the password, because now my password is in my email, and it came across all those email servers and that kind of thing. You shouldn't be doing that in the first place. Secondly, how do you know my password? You shouldn't know my password. Well, we're the web host, of course we know your password. No, you're not supposed to know my password. You're not supposed to be encrypting my password. You're supposed to be hashing it and salting it so that no one knows my password, so that not even your servers know my password. You see, and then when I put my password through a one-way algorithm, and it's salted and hashed, it matches But what you've got in your systems is not a password. It doesn't reverse engineer to anything. That's how that's supposed to be used. And it has been a standard process for years. People know that you do not encrypt passwords. Encryption can be decrypted. You don't do that. But I know of many web servers and web hosts who will email you your password if you lose it. And that means that they know what it is. I have had people access my account who worked for the company without having to... And that's like, of course they're going to be able to access your account, but they did it because they knew the password. Because they were able to pull the password up and go in there like they're me. All of these issues, like, that's just human issues. And you say, well, the people who are making the secure systems upon which the self-driving car is going to be designed are not the kind of people who are going to leave that system that insecure. My point is that the person who works for that company can get their way in. They have access to the password list, you know. Certain people, not necessarily the whole company, but certain tech people are going to have access to the password list. And hopefully if it is salted and hashed, there are rainbow tables, and you can reverse engineer that too and find yourself some passwords. But they're going to have access to the system, which means there's always going to be, at the very least, at the lowest threat level, there's always going to be the possibility of a disgruntled worker, of a sociopathic lunatic, who decides today is going to be the day that I upload a whole bunch of false maps to everyone's cars that drive them off the side of a cliff. I'm going to I'm going to send down a firmware patch that tells the sensors on the car that when you detect something, you know, very close to the right, instead of steering to the left, steer hard to the right. There's always going to be that basic level of lack of safety. That's just there because someone has to patch these systems. The fact that human beings are working on these systems, you don't even have to have malicious intent. You can accidentally put the wrong word into your code and roll that code out and go, oops! I meant the code for right, not left, you know. Tier 5, is the idea of a password not outdated anyway? Shouldn't it be some sort of highly specific, intelligent, automated handshake that can be verified as being personal? Securing something as simple as a string of text seems a bit pointless to me, says a guy called Pi. Well, there is the alternate system where you insert and then you release a bit of genetic material. It's it's really hard to get into. I mean, it has to be hard first. And then, let's not talk. Any website or company that holds passwords gets digitally audited, says Bearsuit Lane. Well, I know of one that's currently, currently in the process of doing that, and they are very insecure. Super insecure. But yeah, like, at the ground level, if the company can send a firmware update, like if Tesla can send firmware updates to its cars, which they can, then that's all you need. That's a doorway in. And at the very base level of security threats are the people who work at Tesla. On top of that, when you do get a society that has self-driving vehicles as a regular thing, when that's just part of, you know, traffic. Huge part of traffic, just a lot of self-driving vehicles that are doing the job, and people are sitting in their cars, sipping cappuccino, chairs turned around, they're having a conversation with the guy in the back, and I'm not making that up, because there's a Chrysler design right now for a vehicle I just saw on Abstract on Netflix, which I think is like a year-old program, but Chrysler was designing their first self-driving car with the idea that all the seats would rotate, and you could just have like a fireside chat in the car while the car drives itself. When that is a normal thing and it's out there on the streets, any government, world government, that did not make sure to immediately research and figure out how to hack that system on another nation, you know, in another nation, would be not doing their jobs. You know? If China and, you know, if North Korea, but if China, if Russia, if just Europe, if any place, if any other country has a whole bunch of self-driving cars, and your nation hasn't, like, developed a hack to take over their network, to send false data, to try and, you know, break into their firmware, then they're not doing their jobs. Because that's part of being prepared for war. And we were having this conversation, and someone was saying that's against the Geneva Conventions, that's not allowed. Any nation that, you know, did that or claimed responsibility for that, it doesn't matter whether they do it or not, or whether they claim responsibility for it or not. I'm saying you have to acknowledge that it would be irresponsible of them to not make sure that they could do that. Right? So you're going to have the resources of nations of the world making sure that they've got a way of hacking the other nations of the world's automated self-drive systems for the purpose of causing horrific, horrible events where cars just steer themselves off the road in the middle of rush hour, cross lanes, won't start up, you know? If you could do something like that, if you could hack those vehicles and just make it so that all the automated cars can't start up and you can't reflash the firmware, well, then you've really undermined the industry of that nation. That's good. That's something you need to have in the event of war. The automated car is something that I will never trust. I may have one, and I may, you know, enjoy having it, but I will never trust it. I will simply accept the risks for the benefit of it. And the truth is, it will be a mitigated risk, less risky than being on a road full of a bunch of other humans trying to check their text messages while they're driving and all that sort of thing. It will be an improvement, and I acknowledge that. But there will always be the possibility of that day where some party, governmental, within the institution itself, or, you know, the manufacturer itself, or just a malicious external party. Some, you know, very good hacker who's a sociopath, you know, one of these kids that made it through without, who was left with mental illness but didn't actually bomb or gun down anybody in the school, got out on the other side, learned some real good hacking skills. There will always be the threat of a one-time event where somebody sends some code down a pipe that can only ever be as secure as computing is, which is insecure, no matter how secure you think it is. The only way to make a computer system as secure is to take it off of the network. And then you'd have to also, you know, bury it so that people can't actually get to the computer itself. Nothing is secure, what I'm saying. They all have a much bigger red button already, says Bearsuit Lane. Yeah, but that destroys and irradiates the land for a while. You know that they're going to want this option, right? I don't care if every other country in the world has the big red button that would drive every self-driving car off the road. They already have the big red button. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where you have to go with that. Is that it is a mitigated risk. It is a mitigated risk, but it's also a risk that doesn't involve just the nations that, you know, might want to do this thing or that thing, that might, you know, war scenario, have their backs against the wall and see that they're going to lose and decide time to, you know, destroy their industry and make their people just, I mean, the massiveness of that event during rush hour, hit a button and every automated car guns it and pulls to the right. You know, that would be so disheartening across a nation that's at war, which is exactly why you would employ that tactic. There will always be that possibility of that event, and always the possibility of the event of just an individual who knows how to hack something, you know? Somebody who just doesn't care, somebody who's just too fucking stupid and doesn't recognize that other people's lives are as valuable as their own. Who just wants to show off. I mean, look at the internet today. People do horrible things just because they can. Just to be like, look at me! Ah, I know how to do this! Troll face. Come on. Come on, baby. Just pull her in. We need a little bit of gas, and then we're pulling up. In addition to that, my you know, questions about my concerns about the automated car also relate to the fact that the more electronic that cars have become, the more unreliable that they have been. You know, I would prefer to have a vehicle from the late 80s, early 90s, where the computer in the vehicle does very little, than I would have a modern vehicle that does everything based on sensors, and then when one of the sensors goes, the entire car basically stops functioning the way that it's supposed to. because that has been my experience with modern cars. One sensor goes, and, you know, it doesn't sense the fuel-to-air ratio correctly, it trusts the input from the sensors, and then what do you get? Well, you get the car correcting for a sensor that's misreporting information. Okay, if you're going left, this guy will stop for me. Cut him off. One sensor misreports the information, the computer, like, changes all of the output of the other sensors to try and accommodate, and your car, which had nothing wrong with it, except for that a resistor, a capacitor, and a sensor, something went, you know, burned out. Mechanically, your car is fine, and the thing becomes undrivable, stalling, you know, sputtering. Just doesn't work. It's because of one little sensor in the car, and the thing that worries me, that is a, you know, mitigated risk, just deal with it. I understand, and I'm going to. Is this I missed the entrance, didn't I? I did. Shit. Went in the wrong place. Oh, no, and there's... Shit. Okay, we'll go around, is what we'll do. The thing that worries me is when those sensors are attached to the computer, and the computer decides where to point the car, and when to hit the brakes, and when to hit the gas, and that sensor goes. I know that you design fail-safe systems, but the problem is not when the sensor stops functioning entirely. The problem is when the sensor starts misreporting information, which tends to be what happens in modern vehicles. It's not that the sensor just dies. If the sensor dies, modern computers tend to pick that up and go, oh, that sensor's out, so I'll, you know, report this. It doesn't make the adjustment. The big problem in modern vehicles and their electronics is when the sensor is not dead, it's just misreporting everything, and the computer is still trusting what it has to say. And what happens when your sensors are misreporting, and it's the sensors that decide whether or not to turn the car, whether or not to hit the gas, whether or not to stop before you go in, you know, through the red light. It's a mitigated risk. It's better than people driving. I admit and acknowledge that, but I will never trust. Never trust. I will accept it. I will be quite happy to, you know, not have to drive myself. I'm a guy with CFS. There are days when I can't drive. I've had those days where I did not trust myself to get on the road because my mind was, I had so much brain fog, I didn't trust myself to be able to focus and maintain that focus. So I just couldn't drive that day, regardless of whether I had places to go or not. I will be looking forward to the day when I have the option of saying, car, take me there. And it won't matter what the state of my health is. But I will never trust it. And anyone who does trust it, and anyone who thinks that they can secure that system, and they can build it truly fail-safe, is exactly the person who I don't want working on that system. You know? I hope that Elon Musk knows in his heart of hearts that what he's building is a bettered mousetrap, but not a perfect one. I don't want the guy sitting there who's like, no, I can secure the system. There'll be no way to break into this when I'm done with it. No, I can make it so that it fails perfectly safe, and regardless of what the sensors... I want you to try, but I want you to know that there were engineers, okay, who designed nuclear reactor towers, coolant systems for nuclear reactors, and if anyone was ever trying to make sure that a system would fail safe, it was them. And the cooling rods did not deploy. So, you trying to, you know, make sure that your infrared detection and your cameras and all that kind of stuff will always fail safe, please do not have the ego that says, no, I can make sure. I'll be sure of it. Because human beings had to wade into radioactive cooling pools of dirty water, and by that I mean nuclear water, in order to empty the tank before the cooling rod, or before the rods melted through the God knows how much concrete, splashed down into that dirty water, and shot steam full of radioactive material into the atmosphere. People had to intentionally wade into dirty water knowing that they would die in the dirty water from the radioactivity in order to drain that pool. And that was in the engineering that some of the smartest people alive doing the most dangerous work, who were trying to design fail-safe systems, didn't quite get right. I'll never trust the the automatic car. Though I will happily invite it into my life. I'll never trust not having a gun again in my life either. But if the rest of the country got on board and said, yeah, we're willing, pawn, we're willing to give up our guns, I'd give up my gun. I wouldn't be happy about it. But I'll give you my shotgun if everybody else is going to give theirs up, just, you know, to get the greater good. But I'm not going to trust it. I'm not going to trust that the police can protect me, because I know they can't. I've been through the experience. If they do press their non-nuclear button, we will press our nuclear buttons, as Parachute Lane. That's always been there. The point is, it's not a sound military strategy until self-driving cars proliferate to the point that it would be as effective as a nuke, says Parachute Lane. You sound just like my mother. New cars and their fucking brains always breaking on us. They do. Like, in an old car, if my idle is, you know, wrong, if something's going wrong in that, it's in the spring. There's a little adjustment I can go in there. I can, you know, tighten it up so that there's and that's it. In a modern car, if my, you know, idle is incorrect, it could be anything. It could be anything in the electrical systems and the sensors and the capacitors, the resistors, the diodes. It could be a ground fault that has nothing to do with that system. Modern cars are far less reliable because older cars were mechanical. And steel tended to fail less than resistors, capacitors, and diodes. It's just the reality of it. Whether it's a sound military strategy or not, it's always going to be out there. And you know that the military will have the option in hand. They will have the option in hand. And once they've got the option in hand, well, now you gotta trust the military. You gotta trust that the people thinking on behalf of the military are sound military strategists. I will remind you that Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America right now. Mike Pence is the vice president, I think. Yeah. I will remind you that there is a fella leading the nation of North Korea who claims to have nuclear weapons that can hit the United States of America, who also tells his citizens that he has never had a bowel movement because he is so holy. So when you come to me and say it wouldn't be sound military strategy, I do not take that as a significant deterrent to someone pressing any button. Problem with fail-safes is there's no fail-safes for the fail-safes, as Hologram one. There very often are redundant systems, and I'm sure, Parachute Lane says there are redundant systems, though, and I'm sure there were a multitude of redundant systems in 3 Mile Island, in, you know, the nuclear reactor meltdowns in Chernobyl. There must have been redundant fail-safe systems, and yet on the day that system, that all the fail-safes failed to fail-safe, and the cooling rods got stuck and would not deploy, they would not sheathe the nuclear reaction and stop it, there was another fail-safe that had been missed, which was the fact that the cooling pool, the pool holding radioactive liquid, was directly beneath the chamber where the rods were. And now that they're in an overload state and they're going to start melting through the concrete, they're going to melt their way through meter after meter of concrete and then fall into this pool and immediately evaporate in one instant. And it's going to cause, a massive explosion just from the steam, and it's going to blow everywhere. And also, all of those particles of dirty radioactive waste are going to become vapor and put high into the atmosphere and travel all over the world. And the engineers of that cooling tower did not see that coming. Did not see that coming to the point where they had no way of removing the liquid, of relieving the pool, of emptying the pool from off-site. Human beings had to wade into the pool and open valves and then die floating in the pool in order to save millions of lives on that day. And I'm saying, you know, your confidence in your fail-safes and your backups is misplaced. It is a mitigated risk. It is a reasonable risk. It is a risk that we should all take. You know, automated cars have to come. It's going to make the road safer overall. But god damn it, I'll never trust it. I'll never trust it. I mean, you know, if I'm sitting in an automated car, I probably am going to make sure that my seat is facing backwards. Because in the event of an impact, forward impact, you got all that stopping. Instead of snapping your neck forward and bouncing off an airbag or something like that, make sure that I'm backwards so that my body will just do that. Never trust it. There were also redundant systems in the car that just murdered someone, says Bearsuit Lane. Oh, was there another Tesla? Or what? There are also double redundant systems in airplanes and space hardware and software. We have come to the end of the live stream, says a guy called Pi. Have we? I didn't notice. I'll also feel very uneasy if I step into a self-driving car, says Bearsuit Lane. It'll be a fun ride, and yeah, I'll accept it, but it'll it's no more trustworthy than any other driver on the road. It's a little more trustworthy than any other driver on the road, but it's still, I suppose the trade-off is having a consciousness, non-consciousness, but having basically someone who is always going to be watching the road. And people who are driving are mostly watching the road. Some of them are just occasionally watching the road. But having, perfect awareness 100% of the time, that's what you get. And what you don't get is, a human being, unless they have, what you don't get is that one human being can decide intentionally to drive headlong into traffic and cause one accident, whereas a system of self-driving cars means that one human being can decide to drive 1,000 cars headlong into traffic and kill tens of thousands of people. So there's your trade-off. Manual cars are relatively hugely unsafe, says a guy called Pi. It's true. It's true. I remember when hydrogen, when people started powering cars with hydrogen, and that was being talked about a lot, and there was, people... I feel like the automotive industry itself that didn't want that was saying, it's way unsafe. Hydrogen, you just store hydrogen? Hydrogen is massively explosive. Do you just put hydrogen in the back of your car? Aren't I sitting on top of a bucket of gasoline right now? Kind of pressurized? Isn't that what we've got here? Because there's a vacuum system. Aren't I sitting on pressurized gasoline and you're going to tell me hydrogen is unsafe? Guy called Pi says, having said that, I've never died in a car. I can't wait for autonomous vehicles, says Greg Aubrey. I'll gladly give up my freedom to take it away from drunks and create safe transport for the elderly and infirm. As a member of the infirm, I do look forward to the day as well. But, WPA2 wireless security encryption was secure for 12 years, and then somebody figured out a way to hack it. And now there, are presumably, I haven't looked into it, but I presume that there are, little apps that you can download. Script kiddies who don't understand hacking and coding can run them and hack into a WA2 wireless network. I have this feeling that, in the scope of human history, as time goes on, we'll have automated cars. We will see a massive reduction. We'll see, all the usual on the bar chart, or on the line graph, rather, of, all of the usual amounts of, car wrecks and incidents and property damage and stuff like that. All automated cars, it'll be a 1-to-1 ratio. The more automated cars, the more we see a reduction of that. And it'll be like, look at how much automated cars have done for us. Look at that. And then one day, there will be one bad patch, bad map, intentional hacking, something, and hundreds of cars, if not thousands, will receive a firmware update, and they'll just drive off the road, into each other, cross lanes of traffic, A bad map comes down, and it shows the road going just a little bit further before it turns into the Grand Canyon. And then those numbers, then that line chart is going to go like this. Yeah, look at how much since we got automated cars, and oh, shit! And then it'll start coming back down again. I mean, on a long enough timeline, it has to happen, right? Whether in this dimension or in one of the parallel dimensions of quantum theory, it's got to happen. Look up the story of how the autopilot of a plane took over control and would not give it back, so they had to pull the breaker on it, Sister Macian? Really? Well, the autopilot probably would have landed it safely anyway. Listen, this live stream has talked about everything, every subject known to man today. I'm very happy with this live stream. Just tangents galore. We have solved, school shootings in America. So there you go. You're welcome. Next live stream, we'll focus on, solving, this whole Trump in office. No, drugs and guns. We'll do drugs and guns next. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Next live stream will be this Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. I am the Ronin Pawn. It won't be map-based, I think, says a guy called Pi. Oh, they'll have maps involved. You know, it'll be relational. But there's going to be a map involved. Somebody will update a map one day. It'll be an accident, too, on the developer's side, you know? Some guy who just put it in, oh, that was supposed to be South Korea. Oops! You know, it's just a bad map update. That probably won't kill anybody. The cars will still be smart enough to, like, stop themselves before they do something bad, but, you know, they'll just be like, they'll all try and turn left and then have to stop because there's no road there. You know that day is coming. Also, okay, listen to this. Pawn out.